Yo, this is Diving In number 4, and today we have no guest. So honestly, we're going to talk a lot of shit, and it's going to be gaming related for some of it, but it might also not be for the rest of it. So let's just see what happens. We're going to have a good time tonight, and yeah, let's fucking enjoy. How are you, Pink? You good?
I'm fantastic, man. Getting hyped up over all sorts of stuff this week. You know, projects. YouTube is kicking off. It's great.
It's been really productive, actually. I mean, I've kind of gone from a stage in this lockdown situation where I've just been playing WoW every day and all day like a degenerate, and now I've actually got a lot of shit going on, so it's nice. And obviously, I know you're the same, so
Absolutely.
yeah. Let me change just a bit. Okay. So yeah, I mean, okay, obviously, if you guys are watching the podcast, then you might have seen that we've been uploading some other videos. We started with the perceived difficulty in raiding in multiplayer games, rather. And that was actually a decently big project because it was our first video, so it took me like 2 to 3 days to get all the footage and edit it. We were quite happy with it, actually. And yesterday we uploaded a video called A Beginner's Guide to High Mythic Plus Keys, and I actually tried recording that myself first with the audio. I tried it for like multiple hours, and I did it tip by tip just to try and get it right. And then I said, Pink, you suggested, he was like, hey, do you want me to have a crack at it? Because I gave him the script that I had made while I was kind of narrating it, and instantly like 10 times better. So yeah, the gameplay is from me, and the script is from me, and the ideas from me. The Pink executed it beautifully. I think we're really happy with the video.
I'm very happy with it. Sorry for stealing your thunder a little bit. I didn't mean for mine to be used. I was just like, hey, why not give it a try? If it works, it works. And
dude,
then
it was so much better than mine.
Sick.
I'm not good at that stuff. I'm fine with the editing and even with writing scripts and the video ideas, but actually recording that stuff is kind of tricky, to be honest. So yeah, that's good.
I mean, I spent hours on like learning speeches and stuff before anyway, so I'm quite happy with my public speaking.
How long did it... I'm fine with public speaking normally, but for some reason, like, video editing is just a bit weird for me. Oh, not video editing, but rather, video recording. I find it a bit difficult. I keep stumbling my words. Like, even before the podcast with Pink, I said I'm going to grabbingly quick a drink, when I meant to say quickly grab a drink. Like, I'm just a fucking idiot, man. But...
Hey, man, it happens.
Yeah, we've got some cool ideas for videos. At the moment, we're releasing one video a week, and then also the podcast episode every week. So that's very consistent, and we're kind of planning to do 2 videos a week with 1 podcast episode a week. But we're trying to ease ourselves into it and get used to everything. So, that's how it is.
Exactly. Don't want to overwork ourselves and burn out, right?
Exactly. So I think we both have different ideas for videos, though. Like, do you want to talk about some ideas or scripts that you're working on just to give everyone a bit of a tease, Pink?
Yeah, so it's hard, right? Because I've got like so many ideas, and I'm working on 6 scripts at the moment, actually. The ones that are furthest ahead are the Love Letter to XCOM, and the first kind of introduction to our Let's Rework WoW project, which is like going to be a huge project, which won't be coming out for a while anyway.
Definitely not.
So those are the 2 main ones I'm focusing in on, but I also want to do something like... why 10-man is better than 20-man raiding, in my opinion, or like what are the benefits of raid sizes. I haven't nailed down the exact flow of that script yet, but that's kind of what I'm working on my side. What about you, Joey, actually? Like, are you working on other scripts?
Well, I told you briefly about the idea before. I've got some ideas for things I want to do, and most of that is going to be me writing the script and then getting the gameplay. And for those, just to make the editing side a bit easier, to be honest, because it's a bit annoying to get the footage from these different dungeons and raids and whatnot. So I'll probably just put something in the background and let everyone listen to your beautiful voice. So some ideas I have at the moment is Pink and I have actually been playing a lot of Valorant. And I've been playing it since I got the beta key. And, I've played shooter games my whole life. So I'm by no means a professional or anything, or even, like, really good at the game. But I have a lot of experience, and I've played the game enough, so I really wanted to make a guide for new players, kind of like the last Mythic Plus video, but for those who want to get into Valorant, because I know that it's a really unfriendly game to get into, especially if you've never played something like Counter-Strike before, which... really just grabbed me by the balls when I played it, especially with all the hackers, but that's not a problem now. But yeah, I really...
or any competitive game, really, right?
Because yeah, exactly.
It's a completely different experience to, like, set up your character in an RPG where you're just sitting there looking at your stats versus in Valorant, where it's like 20 seconds buy something, and you're like, oh, okay. you know.
Exactly. It's a handful if you've never played that kind of game before. And like I said, I've been playing shooters my whole life. And my first game of Valorant, I went something like 5-25, and I had already done research on the game. Like the game is hard. I'm much better now. Had a game last night which was pretty much 3v5. Thanks, Pink.
Yeah, well, sorry about that.
That's all good. Nah, it's other stuff happened, but yeah, we had like a 3v5 yesterday. I had something like 35 kills. Got a little ace. Got a few nice clips. There's actually a clip of me on my Twitch channel where I'm discussing how new players shouldn't feel threatened about getting into the game. And then I say myself that I don't even consider myself good at the game. And then I instantly one tap 2 people in the head with a sheriff. So that was kind of funny. But yeah, so I'm definitely gonna kind of start working on a video for a brief Valorant guide. Just make it short and sweet. And then another idea I have is something I've kind of spoken about before. But I still have a lot of Borderlands 3 DLC to get through. I haven't touched it, and that's not been on purpose. But I want to get on. I want to get onto making a love letter for Borderlands. I'm not too sure how I'm gonna do the recording of that because I think it's probably better if I do it. But
Yeah.
I think I'm just gonna get some gameplay in the background and just have a casual conversation. If I make some stumbles, it's fine. Maybe you guys can let me know in the comments what you think. But I'm down to just have a one-to-one and just kind of spit things off the top of my head because it's a game I love, So those are the 2 kind of main video ideas I have at the moment.
And I'm looking forward to the Borderlands one because I've never actually, I've never played it properly. I played it a little bit with you at one time.
Yeah. Borderlands 1 takes a while to get into.
Honestly, I was a little bit discouraged, not because of the game. The game seemed fun, but no hate, right? No hate. But the main thing I was struggling with is that you were like really knowledgeable and really far ahead in the game. So you had like all these weird guns and all these powers, and you did more damage than me and all this shit. And I was like, okay, listen, what does this do? And you've killed the quest already. I'm like, okay, what?
That was my bad. Like, honestly, I'm such a Borderlands veteran. Nello, okay, I see the channel rewards. Sorry to cut you off. I see the channel rewards, and I think in podcasts for the future, I'm just going to do the channel rewards afterwards. So I'll do all that stuff afterwards if you want me to do a little dab or something. But that's just for the shame. Anyway, so yeah, like, I'm quite the Borderlands veteran. So there were definitely moments in quests where Pink had no idea what the fuck was going on. And I literally just, like, done the quest already because I know where to go, I know what to do, I know where all the fucking chests are. I've played Borderlands 1 like 20 times easily. I've played Borderlands 2 just as much, and I've played enough Borderlands 3. Like, that game is my childhood, and honestly, part of the reason you probably didn't like it is because, objectively speaking, Borderlands 1 isn't really the best game, but it's still funny, and for me it has like a lot of nostalgic importance. But I reckon if we jumped on Borderlands 2, then, like, even though that game is old, you would probably still really enjoy it. And it is a lot more friendly to new players because it explains things pretty well.
Well, that's good. Actually, I think I might jump back into Borderlands 1 and have a look at it in my own time. And then we can play Borderlands 2 together if you're interested.
I'm definitely keen. You can get the game. I think you can get it for free now, actually, on Epic Game Store. You should look into that. Yeah, I think. And then if you like Borderlands 2, then we'll hop in Borderlands 3. But yeah, I need to go through the DLC on that, so...
And I mean, I can capture some footage then as well once my SSD arrives, and you can have all sorts of stuff.
Perfect. But yeah, I mean, I guess that's our main video ideas at the moment. For the podcast, we have this idea where every 5th episode or so, we're just gonna take a step back from gaming and talk about real life stuff. But honestly, we haven't really figured it out fully at the moment. So, like, because in every podcast so far, we've had moments where we've talked about different things, and in this podcast, we're definitely going to talk about stuff that isn't gaming related, and we've kind of planned for it as well. So, I mean, we'll see what happens, but I know for a fact now that is it in 2 weeks' time, Pink, with Minas?
Yes, on the 19th, Minas will be a guest.
On the 19th, we have a special guest coming called Minas, just to give you a bit of a tease. And needless to say, I'm really looking forward to that conversation. It's going to be a great podcast episode. But yeah, it's going to be good.
Cardio surgeon and one of the smartest people, as you'd hope a surgeon would be, that I know. And a great person, very manipulative, a complete dickhead. I like it though.
Right. So, what have we been doing, Pink? I know since the last podcast, at least, we've both been quite a bit burned out with WoW.
Oh yeah.
We were talking about it, I think, after the last podcast, weren't we? I mean, we're still like at least this is how I feel, but I'm still very much in love with the game to an extent. You know, it's a crippling addiction, really. But after, like, especially if you have a few characters, the grind gets to you, and it just starts to feel like a job. So we've actually been playing quite a few other games recently. So we've been playing shit like Remnant and Valorant, and then I've even been learning Final Fantasy and playing with Pink. So that's been really nice.
Yeah.
But let's talk about why we're burned out on WoW first, because I think it's a good point. Obviously, that doesn't mean we're not going to be making videos on the game because we still enjoy it and we still play it.
Yeah.
But
And
we're
it's
also
always
doing
going to
other
be
things.
there, right? Like World of Warcraft, you don't quit World of Warcraft ever. You eventually go back to it. So like it's not like we're stopping. It's just that it feels a little bit slow at the moment and just feels like there isn't that much happening until Shadowlands and there's all that kind of extraneous stuff. But you know, all the videos and the projects that we have are separate to that, so it's going to
Yeah.
be great.
On the topic of WoW, quickly, Pink, I want to
Mhm.
do a quick shout out for one-shot boosting.
Oh yeah,
This is a new
exactly.
boosting community that is gold only, and definitely keep an eye out for it because we're going to be offering good prices to people. And if you're interested in boosting for gold, then you can shoot me or Pink a message. I'll leave the Discord info in the description, or if you know us and you can send us a message. But that's starting up from Wednesday next week, and it's going to be really good. So we're really excited about that actually. Sellout? Fuck yeah, man!
Dude, total sellout.
It's awesome. We've got the.
It's going to be.
It's going well.
That's one of the reasons why I'm actually still very interested in continuing, you know, WoW, not just being like, okay, I'm just going to take a break from WoW and play something else for a while and then come back in Shadowlands. Is this boosting community that me and Joey are helping to set up? Now, obviously, we're not the masterminds behind it. That would be the guest of our second podcast, Ben, the Pink Panda boosting controversy. But
But he's a good man now.
he is a good man. But that's why I'm interested in WoW still, because this kind of potential to buy maybe the long boy and other things like that. It's interesting, and seeing a different side of the management. Like, I used to be guild leader and so on, and seeing a different type of people management is very interesting to me.
Yeah, definitely. Being part of the management and like the founding process of it all is actually really intrinsically motivating. And I want to
Exactly.
buy a motherfucking long boy, man. I've always been broken well, for the most part. So even having a few 100k is good to me, but I want my fucking dinosaur auction house boy. I want it. But yeah,
You have probably till the end of the year.
it's definitely a big reason for continuing to play the game, and also because boosting the like Mythic Plus and raids is really fun. Like I don't like sure doing like in raids at the moment we're just wiping constantly, and trying to do heroic and pugs is just a pain in the dick. So like being able to go through a run rather where you can just play your class, you know the fights, and you do big DPS, and then you get some gold out of it. It's really nice. I enjoy it.
Absolutely.
So I think as well in Mythic Plus, it's an added challenge because like I used to just do my plus 15 weekly and I was a bit nervous about it, and it was said in the script for the video, but like now the fact that I can do a plus 15 where one person isn't even playing the game feels really cool. Like sure, granted, I still God knows if I fuck up on some mechanics here and now, but it feels rewarding to improve and boost those higher keys. It's nice.
It really does. And like I would recommend, not just for our boosting community now, but like if anyone that likes to do Mythic Plus, I'd recommend looking into being a booster, just because it actually is, as you said, an intrinsic reward, right? Like being able to push it and getting like, getting paid for it, like in gold and whatever. It feels nice. It feels like you did something, and the gear and rewards that you don't get anymore, because if you're geared to do 15s easily, you're not getting any loot from it, so you're
Mhm.
getting something out of it at least.
Exactly.
Feels good.
I don't need the loot I trade, so it's fine. But yeah, so I mean, I guess we discussed it like very briefly before I sold out. Rightfully so, because it's a good boosting community. But why are you burned out on WoW specifically?
For me, it's a lot to do with the current raid, uh, and just how kind of the general gameplay loop doesn't feel that rewarding. So there's obviously the grind for like echoes now instead of corruptions, and logging in to do dailies and so on. I don't feel that there is much rewarding stuff going on for me at the minute. There is, we're like you said, we're wiping a lot to raid currently, so we're progressing Carapace Mythic. Um, our
if you can
guild
call it
is,
progress.
yeah, well, our guild isn't the best, but I'm happy with the people and I'm happy where we are. So I'm not saying that I would like to be in a different guild, but I kind of wish that we wouldn't be stuck in a way where I feel like I can't really do anything better to help the fight. So I'm just waiting for others to, to get their shit together, if I can say it like that. And I don't mean to touch on anyone, being bad specifically, but sometimes it feels like that. Like, can you just not die this fucking run, Jangry?
I don't mean to call anyone out, but Jangry, what the fuck?
Literally, right? But yeah, no, that's pretty much why I'm burnt out. Like, because like I just feel like nothing I do really helps at the minute, and I like to feel that progression. That's why intrinsic rewards are important.
I get that. I feel like my decreased level of motivation in the game is a bit different, but I actually 100% agree with you on the raid atmosphere and stuff with that, and it's maybe part of the reason I burned out. But for me, it's mostly because I've always liked having ults in the game. And sure, like the catch-up mechanics are pretty decent now. You know, you don't have to do one vision run for every ult, and getting your neck is a piece of cake. So there are like these really nice gateways into getting the corruptions and gear you need, and like doing heroic runs with the guild or anything isn't a problem with me. So I can gear characters quickly. It's nice. But the problem for me probably stems down to the fact that I'm maining Fire Mage at the moment. And while I don't mind raiding with my Fire Mage during our guild runs, I find the class as a whole fucking boring in all other types of content. I do my one weekly 15 on it because, to get the chest. And I dread doing visions because it's boring as fuck. And then, like, the rest of the time, I'm just playing with my warrior, which is great fun. But there's a lot of shit to grind, I leveled my Demon Hunter recently. And the class is fun by all means because I wanted to level it up and gear it for Mythic Plus. But, doing, like, the effort of doing heroic runs and then extra visions on top of that, which is a task I already don't like, is something that's really annoying. So I think for me, like, my low levels of motivation in the game really come down to me playing a class in raids that I don't enjoy and being forced to grind it, but then also having to grind that exact same stuff on like new ults or other characters. Because it's like I have, this part-time job split between 3 characters, and it really drains a lot out of you. I did dailies for 2 months straight, and then, grinded all the essences, and playing new specs and stuff where I have to grind Mechagon rep just to get, what is it, Vision of Perfection or some shit. It's just annoying. Yeah. It's really frustrating. So I've not like I guess fallen out of love a bit with the game and just stopped doing that grindy shit. And these days I'm really just doing the raids with my mage, and then playing my warrior mythic boss.
Thank
Hey
you.
Jangry, good timing.
Thank you for putting that in the
Thanks for the follow.
That's angry.
What's up, Jangry?
Don't watch back what I said there a while ago. Don't do it, man.
We weren't talking about you, Matt. He was probably watching. Thing
Probably
is,
was.
I like Jangry. He's a nice guy. I'm not just saying that because you're here. You're actually
no, honestly,
funny.
like, yeah, if you were a dickhead, we would have kicked you long ago.
Oh, for sure. No, Jangry's like, honestly, if I was in a like heroic only guild, then I'd be so happy with Jangry.
Yeah. Oh no, that's mean.
That's actually mean. No, your DPS is actually fine. So it doesn't even matter. It's not even about DPS, but yeah. Thanks for the follow though, Jangry. I do appreciate it. But yeah, so for me, it really just comes down to having to grind too much different shit on all these different characters, and especially because I don't like my fire mage outside of raids. It's just really annoying. I wish I could just play my warrior and my demon hunter, and you reduce the workload so much more. And now, like, we're getting to this week where it's more and more likely that Masterful 3 is going to come to the corruption vendor, and I'm absolutely not wanting to play my mage. I don't want to grind Mythic Plus to get Masterful 3. I don't give a fuck about my mage. Everyone in the guild knows I'm not that good at the class, but I don't really fuck up mechanics too much, so there's that. But it's just annoying. I don't know. Yeah. What do you think about my little rant, Pink? Do you like?
It's true. No, I fully agree with you. If you're playing a character you don't really enjoy, then your general engagement with the game is going to go down. And like you said, if it's in the raid and you just have to play it for like 6 hours a week, okay, not that big a deal, right? But if you have to then play it, extra hours just to be raid ready, it kind of feels bad.
Exactly.
Although, and this is going to feed into our YouTube videos and so on, but like you said earlier, we were playing a bit of Final Fantasy, and Final Fantasy's class system is a little bit different than WoW's. For those that don't know, you have one character, and that one character can be every class in the game.
That'd be great.
You just switch weapons, and it swaps what class you have, right? So that means you could, for example, play a class in a raid that you don't like as much, but you don't care. But to catch up your progression, you play the class you do like outside of it, and it's all on the same character. So everything you do, rep-wise, essences-wise, gear-wise, is all counted towards the same character.
Yeah, it's like Monster Hunter, which is a great system. Because when I played the game, I was like, wait, I can just change my weapon, and as long as I grind enough to get that good weapon for that class, you would call it, then I can just play that and learn it. It's great. And wow, like, if you want to play a Death Knight, then fucking level that character, get the right Azurite gear, get the essences. There is so much shit that goes into just playing one class that you want, and then there is so much added work on top of that just to maintain it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we've ever had an expansion with this much of a grind outside of raids. I could be wrong, and maybe I'm biased, but it certainly feels that way.
I will say we never had an expansion with as much grind to be relevant for endgame. There's definitely been expansions with a bigger grind, so you could talk about...
I guess MOP was a lot.
You could talk about MOP, you can talk about Warlords of Draenor's Apexis crystal system, you can talk about TBC with all their reps and the elemental and the primal farming, talk about vanilla with their PvP grinding, because we've had Leon on last week talking about that. But those things are not... They don't make you relevant in endgame content, they're not requirements, they're kind of optional for prestige or whatever the fuck you want to do.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what the big difference is, I think.
Yeah, it's a really good point. I mean, if you want to make a character like Raid Ready or even like stronger and competitive, something like Mythic Plus, then you need the corruptions. And if you want the corruptions, then unless you're really lucky, you're going to have to grind echoes. And, on a new tune, it's really unlikely you're going to get the one you need straight away. And it might pop up on a really low eye-level piece of gear, which is kind of frustrating. So,
yeah,
it's definitely a problem. Honestly, even last week, because, like, Nello's been tanking like the past week or something. I was just considering like going to one of the offices and being like, "Hey, can I just tank?" But low-key, I hope one of the tanks just leaves the guild. I love Deborah, but man,
dude, I love Deborah and Lilzen. Poor
I like
Lilzen,
them
by the
both.
way.
Yeah,
I don't know if I can say, but he was in an accident recently and he was injured, and that's why he's missed some raids, and that's really unfortunate. And I hope he gets better soon, dude.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if we could say, but yeah, I really hope it's okay.
Yeah, I'm not gonna give
I like
details.
Lilzen too. I like both the tanks a lot, but I low-key hope that one of them is like, hey, I actually have a 485 mage with all masterful corruptions. Do you want to swap roles? Because it's not even that I like really prefer tanking over DPS and WoW, because I do love the competition, but god man, I just don't like the class. It's I'd much rather just chill and tank and that would be nice.
Sorry.
No, it's alright. It was like, well, I say my fault. Like, again, I really don't mind raiding with Fire Mage, but just all the other content outside of that is not fun. I think it mainly comes down to the fact that it's a caster, and that's never really been my jam. But it's fine. Like, until we killed N'Zoth, then at least I'll be useful, even if I'm not great at my class, because I'm a good player. So, I can say that.
Yeah. I can agree with that. I think
that's fine.
It's pretty good.
It's just annoying because, I mean, you've known me, because we've been in the same guild for like the past 4 expansions now. Oh, 3. 1, 2, 3 expansions, and it doesn't matter. But you've known me for like quite a few years, and you know that when I really like my class, then I just perform. Like you remember me on Pharaoh Druid, on Enhancement Shaman, and even on Fury Warrior. I always consistently got good logs, and it's because I enjoyed the class and pushed myself to learn. But on Fire Mage, I couldn't give less of a shit. I don't care.
Yeah. Isn't that the way with everyone, though? Like, if you enjoy it and you care to look into it, you're going to be better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. It's definitely the case. I mean, it's Fire Mage, so I'll still be like top 5 DPS in some of these fights, because the class is strong.
By virtue of the class.
Exactly, yeah. But I'm by no means the best Fire Mage in the guild.
Well, no.
Maybe the worst.
Possibly. There is Cookie to consider. Hi, Cookie.
Hi, Cookie. I mean, is a bit of a DPS for No Flame, but I don't know. No, I guess it's not a competition anyway, so it doesn't matter. As long as I don't fuck up the mechanics, which is very rare, then who really cares? Because honestly, when you're killing these bosses for the first time, then it doesn't really come down to DPS too much, especially in our case, because the DPS is more than high enough. It just comes down to everyone not fucking up the tactics.
As long as the boss dies.
Exactly. I mean, so actually, let's talk about Carapace progress quickly before we go into our other topics,
Yeah.
because I want to mention this quickly. So, obviously, I know some people from the guild are watching. Hopefully, maybe none of the officers, besides you, Pink, but it doesn't matter.
Hello.
It's probably a good thing. But during the last raid, so we're doing Carapace progress at the moment, and you know, we've made it to phase 3 a few times, and we've made it, and there have been some occasions where we've made it with full sanity, so that's good, but then we always get fucked after that. But I started realizing throughout the second raid that my combust on the 3 cysts on the right side was just not needed. I would combust, and 5 seconds in, like, the one I was combusting was dead, and then the rest of them died in, like, a few seconds. I was like, am I doing too much damage, or do we just have too much damage as a group? So I was messaging Pink, and I was like, hey, I don't think we need my combust on the 3 like growths or whatever in the second phase. And so I said to Pink, like, I'm just going to try not combusting. So for like the second half of the raid, whenever we went to phase 2, I just wasn't combusting the growths, and nobody fucking noticed. And there were even a few times where Sammy was like, oh, the right side DPS was really high this time. I'm just sitting there like, alright, like everyone
Like,
thinks
okay.
I'm combusting, and then like nobody notices me fucking fonting right after in phase 3.
Because no one watches you, dude. Like, let's be fair.
Exactly.
But actually, you don't have to worry about officers seeing this, because I posted it in officer chat after the raid.
Oh, did you? What did they say?
Nothing yet.
Oh, really?
No response yet to that. But hey, you know,
Fair
it's
enough.
all good, dude.
But I think
It
it's
worked
good
out.
because we
Yeah, if you
clearly
can
have the
save damage,
DPS, man.
combust, right?
Like that's what I was saying to you, because if we can have combust for the fucking like boss in phase 3, then that is going to be way more useful than a bit of extra damage on the growths, especially if we don't need it.
Yeah, I mean, only if we don't need it. Because if we do need it, then
If we do
you
need it,
better
then I'll
combust.
combust. But we literally didn't need it at all. Like that shit was
Exactly.
dying. Like it's not even about me being a DPS or, because it just got to a point where I wasn't even finishing my combust, so it wasn't worth it. And if it's not worth it, then you shouldn't be doing it.
Isn't it kind of the opposite of being a DPS, or because you lose DPS, you're holding combust, right?
Yeah, true.
But you're not doing it. You're losing like a use of combust, kind of.
Yeah,
You
that's
know,
true.
like if you do it on the growths, you can do it again later in phase 3, but maybe you get 2 out this way in phase 3. So, who knows? But
I would get 2 out probably.
you also don't get to cleave with it unless you wait again for the little ads to show up, and then you're padding a little bit. But like that might be worth it again, because then the little ads die faster, and yeah, who knows?
I think the little ads are more annoying than phase 2. Like our problem in phase 2 is not the DPS on the growths; it's just the sanity, and some people like getting hit
Sanity,
by insanity bomb.
Yeah, pre-activating the cysts on the ground.
That's
as
a
well.
big problem in our group. To be honest, it's fucking annoying and clunky as shit. Like, do we want to talk about what we think of Carapace? Because I was excited about the fight, especially after Il'gynoth. But
True.
the fight is really boring until the last phase.
It is like phase 1 is kind of like a honestly easier heroic. Like I know that the numbers are higher, right? So people get hurt more from the eye, and we have deaths to that, which I don't think should be happening, right? But it doesn't really. Obviously, you're gonna have harder time pushing numbers for it, but the fight itself is easier because not only is the exact spawn location of the eyes fixed, but also the tentacle slams are fixed. And like exactly what you do is the same every time. So if
Exactly.
you've wiped 4 times, phase 1 is super boring. Phase 2, there's slight variances based on how far away the boss is from the entrance, and if you push him during the shield phase or after, but there isn't enough variance for phase 2 to be interesting either. You just do the same thing every time again. And oh my god, I fucking hate how it bugs my pets out.
Yeah, what happens exactly? I remember you talking about it, but we're not on the same side, so I don't know what happens.
Well, we are now, but
Oh, yeah, true.
so what happens is when you hit the growths on the wall, your pet kind of goes next to the wall and starts hitting the growth. But then when you try to go to the next one, they're like stuck in the wall a little bit, so they can't move.
Oh my god.
So there's like a couple of ways to get them out. You can spam follow the whole time so that they don't actually go into the wall in the first place, but that's kind of annoying. then you could potentially attack assist, and your pets kind of jump out and attack the cyst because the cyst is like close enough. I think that's what most people do, but it can trigger cysts at bad times, and I've been trying not to do that. You can dismiss your pets, which is a DPS loss because you have to cast dismiss and then you have to resummon, and it's like a pain in the ass. And the thing that I've started doing is kind of moving slightly ahead of the group and attacking a cyst that's exactly perpendicular to the growth wall, which then forces your pet to attack from the front of the growth rather than from where the wall is, and they don't get stuck at all. But it's so annoying to deal with that.
That's so dumb. I can't. I mean, BM's always had like really buggy interactions, but that is just so annoying because Phase 2 is clunky as fuck as it is, in my opinion. It feels bad. I mean, like, just like Phase 1, it's very scripted. And, you know, you're just supposed to do the same thing every time, except correctly, which our guild isn't really doing consistently. And sure, like, you have the Insanity Bomb and stuff, but it feels bad because you're slowed by these stupid fucking cysts on the ground, and then, you know, you have to, like, move around. And it's just I might sound like I'm just being whiny, but it doesn't feel fun to play. I mean, you're just killing some growths on the wall, and then getting slowed by this red shit on the floor. It's annoying.
Conceptually, I don't mind killing the growths on the wall, kind of clearing the passageway, right? Like, there is space in WoW for bosses like that. What I think the biggest problem, personally, now you can disagree with me if you want, but I'm kind of thinking from a design perspective because, you know, again, inspiration for YouTube stuff. But so the phase has, you know, a couple of specific things. Kill the cysts correctly to make space. Otherwise, you get slowed and damage. Then they explode and disorient you unless you clear the head. But it has this weird mechanic where they activate in sequence, so you can't pre-activate stuff. Or you can't like activate one, then 10 seconds later activate the next one, because when this one activates, the next one will activate right after. So it's a weird system. I think the problem really comes down to that. Like the slow on the ground and how it interacts with damage is the issue. Because cleave, like fire mages will passively activate cysts around the growths that they're attacking.
Yep.
Because of Ignite. Beast Mastery will because of Stomp. Any class like Unholy DK or anything with passive Cleave AoE, Demon Hunter, you know, they'll all activate the cysts that are close to the growths, and that makes it quite difficult to control the ground areas unless you're just like, okay, listen, you can't cleave, you can't use Blade Dance,
you can't
use
ignite.
Exactly, like, so I think that's a no-go. What they should have done is make the cysts either activate the Disorient based on time activated, so if you hit one and then hit the next one 10 seconds later, then they'll activate 10 seconds later rather than in sequence, or made the cysts uninteractable at all and just have them grow and shrink and you have to kind of dance between them.
Oh, kind of like Il'gynoth with the
kind of like Il'gynoth.
That could be cool. Yeah, it's
just anything like that.
I don't know how I would change it necessarily, but those sound decent, because right now it just feels clunky. Like I said, it's not very nice. I don't even like how the design area looks in the second phase. I mean, sure, he like goes down and, you know, it's his little chamber and he's trying to like regenerate shit. It makes sense, but it looks a little boring, especially because in Mythic you don't even fight him in the second phase. You literally just clear the cysts. So I would have loved to maybe see a like redesign to that area, if anything, or you know, some new mechanics, because it's all stuff that we see in Heroic for the most part, except for the sequence of the red shit on the floor, which blows up. But that just feels annoying to do.
Something that tells me that phase is a failure is the intention behind it. So the intention is it's supposed to be this big race against the clock to complete phase 2 so we can push him into phase 3, because he heals. Did you know that he's constantly healing in phase 2?
Yeah.
Which is, you push him at 50%, and then he heals like X amount per second, because based on how many growths are alive. So it's a big push to kill all the growths as quickly as possible, so he transitions into phase 3 with as little health as possible. But like, no one cares about that mechanic.
Yeah, because it's not even relevant. It doesn't change anything.
It doesn't matter. Exactly.
You're going to try to kill it quickly anyway.
Yeah, so I don't know. It just seems like a big failure.
I would have loved it instead if it was like this big cavern, instead of going up on each side, or maybe you can still do that, but you have to like maybe there's like some obstacles in the way, and not like a maze or something, but you know, obviously you have these cysts on the ground, but maybe you have some ads coming out trying to defend Carapace while you regenerate some health. You have to clear the ads, you have to kill the growths to get rid of the shield or something, and then once you actually get to him, then he runs outside. I feel like thematically it would still match, but it would be more interesting because you're not just trying to kill shit on the ground and on the wall.
Yeah, I'm good with that. That seems like a good idea.
But as the fight is now, it's just, it feels annoying. And maybe that's just a product of always being slowed and then having this annoying mechanic, which you can't really control too well, but obviously you can control it. But it does just feel boring because it's like, okay, we're in phase 2. Let's fucking run up, we'll kill all the shit, and then now we get to the interesting part. Like, that's how it feels to me.
Exactly. It does. It does feel like that.
But
And in some way, it does kind of feel a bit like that's intended, because I think there is, like I said, there is space for certain design elements. So there is fine. It is fine for there to be a design around this kind of slow build up and nothing going on until suddenly the fight becomes interesting. Like, that's okay. But Carapace is not just boring. It, like, all the ideas behind the design, people just don't care about it, and it's not effective. That's where it fails.
yeah, I agree with that. I will say though that phase 3 is really fun, and you need a lot of coordination, which is obviously something we touched on in our perceived difficulty video. But that is definitely the reason that it's one of, well, this, it's probably like what, the second hardest fight in Nyalotha.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, easily.
I mean, obviously N'Zoth is harder, but like Carapace is on a different level from the bosses before.
Oh, compared to Il'gynoth, like Carapace is a whole nother league. You can't compare the two.
Il'gynoth is kind of like phase 1 and 2 of Carapace, and then you're just snoozing, and then, oh, fight's over? Okay.
I don't even think I was awake during the kill, except when those two blobs were chasing me for half an hour in the last phase and I couldn't do damage. I mean, yeah, I have
That's the way.
Scorch, but... Ooh, Scorch, wow. Didn't really do much, but... Yeah, I mean, the last phase is great, and it's going to be interesting to see how long it takes us. I give it maybe another... like, maybe 3 raids?
Yeah, so like another week. I can get behind that.
Something like
I think
that.
that'd be about right. I think it'll be kind of rapid, personally, because if
Excuses?
we
Fuck
get
off now.
if we get phase 1 and 2 consistently, which we're struggling because, like I said, people are dying to Gaze of Madness, and like mental decay, which I'm not sure what we can do to fix it, but once we figure out what to do to fix it, we get through phase 1 and 2 quickly, and then we're just working on phase 3 for a night. I think it dies either that night or the next night.
Yeah, we need
So it
Ben.
becomes-
Ben's not
Yeah,
here
we
on Sunday either, so...
Fuck yourself, Ben.
Yeah, what the hell, man? But, whatever. So, I mean, I guess that's Carapace, really, but...
It is, yeah. I've said too much on it, honestly, but damn, it's interesting.
I'm excited for N'Zoth, but the fight doesn't look too fun. I mean, the last phase looks boring with the new area where you go in. It really just seems like they're taking every mechanic from N'Zoth, and it's just like, cool, now you just always have to deal with it. So it's obviously harder, but it doesn't seem that creative, to be honest.
No, yeah, it doesn't seem creative. I don't know. I mean, the feedback from top guilds and like YouTubers like Preach and Asmongold and stuff they've always been like, yeah, this is kind of a shit fight. So, I mean,
we'll wait till
looking at
Shadowlands and see
it-
what happens.
exactly. It doesn't seem like it would be interesting. Like, tank perspective, okay, you need to know the Psychus route, but there's not really any danger or pressure. From a DPS POV, you need to cover specific timings and specific like burst windows, do as much damage to N'Zoth and all that other stuff, but it doesn't seem like it's that much of a thing. Like, obviously we're gonna wipe for longer than we are on any other boss, but like, I don't think it's gonna be that interesting.
Yeah, as a mage, is just what combust Psychus
And N'Zoth,
and
depending
N'Zoth.
on.
Yeah, depending which one you're assigned to. Should be fine, man. I don't know. But yeah, we've been Pink and I, at least together, have been playing, like we said, Final Fantasy and Valorant recently. Do you want to talk about Valorant first? Because you're not too accustomed to shooters, are you? What's your
No, man.
experience? What's your experience been with Valorant? And do you like the game now, or?
No, I don't.
I feel like you do.
I don't though. That's okay. Let me explain. Valorant is a study of suffering for me because shooters go against my preferred playstyle in multiple different ways. So as I'm making a love letter to my favorite game of all time, XCOM, it's a slow, turn-based, think about every move style game. And a shooter is the exact opposite of that, right? You need quick reactions. You need to have good aim, like mouse control. You can't, like, if you misclick, you just miss their head. Like, oops, I don't get the kill. That happens to me all the time. So it's like the antithesis of what I enjoy in gaming, really. But the frustration and the amount I can like learn because I go outside my comfort zone is something I do love, and that's why I'm actually enjoying Valorant, because it's a whole new skill set.
Ah, so you are enjoying it.
Sorry?
So you are enjoying it.
I am enjoying it, but I hate the game. I hate the game because I can't perform and I can't do as well as I know I should be able to do based on like my years of playing games, right? Like it's like, okay, I've played games all my life and I should be able to click on that guy's head, but I can't.
Okay, so you don't hate the game, but you hate being bad at the game.
Yeah, but like, isn't that part of Valorant though? Like, when I see, you know, CS:GO or Valorant, just shooters in general, part of it is that, fuck, I got killed, rage, you know, like everyone kind of does that in the scene, right? Like one of my friends that plays Counter-Strike in the past has been kind of a bit of a rager when it comes to that. So I think that feeling, that frustration feeling, is part of the game, or am I wrong?
It really depends on the person, but at least for me, it's definitely part of the game, and I always find shooter games as a whole way more infuriating than something like WoW. Like for example, the other day in our raid, we were wiping on Carapace for 3 hours. And sure, it was a bit annoying, right? And it's just a bit disheartening. But it's not something that's like important enough to rage about. Like, whatever. But
yeah,
like when you shoot someone in the head and then it shows that like, oh, you shot them in the legs, or like, you know, you check it, like your teammate does something stupid and then you get shot in the head because of it, then that's fucking annoying. That pisses me off. Like, by virtue, the game is very difficult and can be very rage-inducing. But like, obviously, some people just don't like that. Some people just casual and don't like care too much about that kind of stuff.
Yeah, like even when I played StarCraft, right? StarCraft is very much more similar to a shooter than, for example, XCOM is, because it's played in real time, and you do have to have some level of mouse accuracy in StarCraft for micro. So I was actually pretty good at StarCraft, so there is maybe some transferable skill there. But the difference is, if you fail something in StarCraft, if you go into a battle, you go into a fight, and two armies fight against each other, and you just get fucking rolled, you always have the chance to get back and like recover. And in Valorant, you do as well, right? Because you have multiple rounds, and if you lose a round, that doesn't mean you lost the game. But it feels a lot more like a loss if you turn a corner and get fucking shot, like you just gone, than it does in StarCraft to lose an army and just go, okay, I need to rebuild it. You know what I mean?
I kind of agree and disagree with you, because like in Valorant, I have this thing a lot of the time where I will play like absolute shit at the start of the game, and I'll be like 7-7, not really doing too well. But then like after a while, I kind of adapt, maybe in the same way you do in StarCraft, where you make a comeback. And you know, I might be 7-7, but then by the end of the game, I'm 28-8, right? And I've made a very big impact towards this game, and maybe we even win it. I think those comeback stories and the kind of things you can do in a game are very much possible. But obviously the difference is that it's more team based. So if you have a shit team that doesn't cover any angles, and you're constantly going to be, you know, pretty much 1v5 the whole time, then it's fucking hard. But it's possible if you're good enough, right?
I can see that, yeah. I suppose I don't really see that on myself because I'm not good enough.
See, that's the funny thing, is like, obviously, like, you're new to shooters in general, and especially Valorant is a really unfriendly game to new players. But I've been playing shooters my whole life, and I think I suck at Valorant. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm better than you, no offense.
Oh, yeah,
but I'm still, like, not high level at the game. Like, I can aim well, and I know the fundamentals, but it's really just about getting better at clicking people in the fucking head. That's mainly it. I mean, I've like high hopes for myself, and honestly put a lot of pressure on this kind of stuff, because I'm not really good at shooters. I was good at Call of Duty. I was good at Overwatch. I will be good at Valorant. So, although Overwatch does a much bigger focus on abilities.
Yeah, exactly for watching stuff. I want to give a little bit of a mini shout out maybe to a YouTube channel that I've been watching a lot. That's taught me a lot in Valorant called Clickheads. Like literally click the head. It's pretty interesting.
Or like dickheads.
Yeah, or like dickheads, yeah. Now I find they're kind of like clickbaity, and the way they present their videos is very
Or
much, the
dickbaity?
style of not really actually they're not doing actual clickbait. I'm not saying that they're clickbait. I'm saying like their titles are kind of like these 5 things, blah blah blah, that kind
Yeah,
of
yeah,
way.
yeah. I mean, we'll do that soon enough.
Of course we will.
We already kind of
But
did.
they actually have good info, and I learned a lot. So I think watching stuff helps me improve as well.
Hmm.
Except
Sure.
for Real Ben, sent me a video right at the start when I started playing. Do you remember my first game where I just went like 0-42 or some shit?
It wasn't 42, but yeah.
I know it wasn't 42. It was like literally terrible
It
though.
still wasn't
But
good, but yeah. Not as bad as Ali.
Ben sent me a video then, and it was some like high level, what was it, peak strategy and like specific like things. I'm like, I don't get any of this.
Yeah, that seems like a pretty complex thing though. I mean, if someone that doesn't even play shooters watches a video called peak strategies, then you're not gonna know what the fuck's going on. Like, you're only gonna know that if you have some semblance of what it already is. Like, for example, have I told you about right hand peeking and why that's stronger than left hand peeking?
I don't think you've told me that.
It might not necessarily be the case in Valorant because I know they're trying to get rid of the peeker's advantage, but we can explain it quickly.
Yeah,
So
go for it, dude.
essentially, and again, I'm not an expert, and a lot of it is to do with networking, but traditionally in games like Counter-Strike and other shooters, you have this thing called the peeker's advantage where essentially it comes down to the network and the internet routing system where the person peeking loads the information first or at least a bit faster than the person who's looking at that corner or at that specific location. And so they have at least a fraction of a second more time to react and kill someone, especially because when you're looking at peeker's advantage, you can peek out and in, so it's a bit more beneficial. So I'm 100% certain that they've actually tried to fix that with Valorant with their networking code, and they've given examples of that. But what I'm not sure about specifically is something that's called right hand peeking, and you see that in games like Fortnite where it's very prevalent, and other shooters. But the reason right hand peeking is so strong is because the characters hold their gun with their right hand, right? You see it on the right. So you actually you oftentimes don't need to peek as much if you're coming from the left, right? So if you're going from the left and peeking with your gun on the right, then you actually don't need to peek as much in order to get a shot. Whereas if you're peeking with the left, then you might need to come out all the way. It might not necessarily be the case with Valorant because it's a function of where your crosshair is. And like, for example, your gun might be looking at the wall, but then you don't shoot the wall. But in games like Fortnite, right-hand peeking is something that really distinguishes a good player from an amazing player.
Right, yeah, no, I can actually relate to that a little bit. Like, I didn't know that was a thing in competitive shooters. I thought that literally, even though the gun model is like on the left, that the bullet like came straight out like that.
Yeah.
Obviously, looking back, it doesn't. And actually, relating this to Remnant, which is another game we've been playing a little bit of recently, which is interesting as well. The gun model and where the bullet comes from, because a lot of the guns actually use like models for their bullets. They don't use hit scan. So a lot of the time, the bullet actually comes from like the left side quite extremely.
Yeah, quite strongly.
And you might hit a wall instead of the thing you're aiming at, and I noticed that there. So
a good example is
actually makes
Zarya
sense.
in Overwatch with her laser beam. She does the same thing, and you can hit a wall even if you're not aiming at the wall because of where you're peeking. But obviously, in games like Overwatch, that's not as important a factor unless you're playing, shit like McCree or Widow, where it does become important. I'm not sure if they've like changed that or anything, but it's probably the case. But feel free to correct us in the comments or leave some examples of games where that is an important thing. But I'm not 100% honest, sorry, I'm not 100% sure if it's the case in Valorant because it's obviously just where your crosshair is, right? But it could be. I think I've been doing it unconsciously anyway, though, because I used to play a lot of Fortnite before Valorant was even announced, and that is definitely an important thing in Fortnite. It definitely gets you some kills sometimes.
I wonder, is it better? I genuinely wonder this. Is it better for a game to, let's say the entire game is based on hit scan, like Counter-Strike is, for example. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
and there's no actual bullet physics. So would it be better for the visual effect to be kind of as if it is slightly from the left where the gun model is, but the actual hit scan ignores that trajectory and only goes straight, so left and right-handed peeking is identical? Or would it cause more interesting depth of gameplay to actually have that advantage between left and
I think
right-handed
it definitely creates more interesting gameplay, and I'm always an advocate for something where you can introduce new elements of skill in the game. I think if you can have those small things which separate a good player from a great player, then that's really nice. Because it's something you can work on. You know, you can always just say, oh, well, he shot me in the head faster than I shot him in the head. Or you could say, oh, he had the right hand peak advantage there, so that's why I lost that. I need to play around that. I think that's a more interesting avenue for gameplay.
Yeah, no, you're totally right, I think.
And that's part of the reason I love Valorant. And I've got nothing against CSGO besides all the fucking hackers in that game just spinning around on the like a million miles a second. But
is that even fun to play though?
Fuck if I know, man. I've never done it. I played CSGO for a few months. I never played it before and got to Gold Nova 4 within like 2 months. And then just stopped playing because every second game there was some guy spinning like this. Fucking like just shooting through walls, just like bab, 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 through the map. I couldn't do anything, man. So I just stopped playing the game because I was sick of it. I know there's like ESEA servers and stuff like that, but I didn't want to pay extra or go through the hassle because then obviously the game's become really sweaty. I was still learning it, so it's annoying. But the reason I almost prefer, like I do prefer Valorant over CS, and one of the main reasons for that is because of how unique the agents make the game. And you know, I've always loved games like Overwatch, and obviously that game is chaotic as fuck. But in Valorant, you're taking the equipment which you would normally buy in CSGO, and obviously you're still buying it in Valorant, but you're spreading the utility and the types of utility throughout characters, so not one game is ever going to be the same. You know, if you don't have a game with Viper, then you don't have to play around that ultimate, then that is a very different game compared to you know, if you have a Brimstone, for example, and you know, suddenly you can put these smokes on the map and push points really easily, and you know, you have to be mindful of other things, like, oh, I can't really stand here because I know that Brimstone has his ult, so if a Sova shoots an arrow, then they're gonna know I'm here, and then I can't escape. You know, there's all these like elements of the game which are in other tactical shooters like CS:GO, like the flashbang, but then they're modified, and then they're like dispersed between different characters, and it makes the game really cool because not only do you have to learn that stuff, but it changes the way you play the game.
I can see that. I don't know Valorant or CSGO enough to make those kind of comparisons, so I can't say like, oh yeah, the spreading of the utility of between the characters is actually what causes it to be interesting. You could make the argument from a completely newbie's perspective, which would be mine, is that it could also be interesting if you don't know what utility the enemy has, so that buying it and having everyone available to get everything is also interesting, but I don't know if I agree with that, so I don't know.
But you do know, because at least in higher level play in things like CSGO, you're going to be buying flashbangs and mollies and smokes. You just buy them.
Yeah.
You're going to buy them every round if you're a competent player. You know, if you're playing Dust 2 on CSGO, and you're running through mid to get to B, I think, yeah, it's B, then oftentimes you might smoke the middle of that so you don't get shot out by an AWP. You know, if you're playing another map like Inferno, I think it's called, then you're going to be using a molly for certain areas. You're going to be flashing corners and pushing. Like those parts of the game are just staple. You know, you've got the flashbang, you've got the smoke, you've got the molly. Those are all things that are in Valorant, but they're different, and it's great. You know, like Phoenix is a great example where you can use his Molotov, but then he can also use it to heal himself. So it's got these a varied kind of use. And then you've got you know, like something like Viper, compared to the new hero Reyna, where you've got this Smoker's Viper which you can place down and reactivate because you have a resource, but then you have Reyna, who has a flashbang in a sense with her eye, but it's a completely different effect which you can play around. And you know, it's probably stronger than Viper's smoke by all means, but the difference is that like the reason it's balanced is because they can alter the duration and like how you interact with it. You know, you can't break Viper's smoke, but you can shoot the eye. You can not look at it. So I think that's a really cool thing they've done, and for a tactical shooter, it adds a lot of depth, which is great.
Yeah, and I think depth specifically, but just kind of versatility is more defined by limitations than possibilities, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
There's often a saying, I forgot what it was exactly, but I think it's in art where it's like, oh, I forgot what it was. Sorry about that. But
That's all right.
something along the lines of limitations make the product or something like that, where it's like if you're constrained to do something and then finding the way to do it properly is more interesting than just being told, okay, do something.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, but I'm definitely enjoying Valorant, and like we mentioned before, expect to see some videos on it. There's a lot of definitely cool guides and videos we can make on it for sure.
Oh yeah.
Looking
You should
for
start
new
off with
characters.
something very basic since it just came out.
Yeah, I mean we'll do the beginner's guide, but I also want to make like some useful smoke spots as Viper because I play her a lot. Remember when we were playing, was it Ascent yesterday, the new map? I actually found 2 smoke spots by myself, which is cool. I think she's really strong on that map, so we can definitely think of some ideas there. But yeah, let's talk
Sure.
about Final Fantasy now then.
Oh,
This
man.
is where our roles completely swap because you're not an expert in Final Fantasy by any means, but I'm a massive fucking noob, and Pink mostly he knows a lot of shit.
Well, this is kind of my avenue, right? Like, if we're talking about slow, methodical gameplay where you have to think a little bit more, then MMOs kind of fall more into that than shooters do. Um,
Of course.
so when it comes to Final Fantasy, I think I've said this in another podcast, but I really truly believe that it's the best MMO on the market from a gameplay perspective. The community support and so on that's around it isn't as good as WoW because we don't have theory crafters, we don't have, all these extra stuff dedicated to it. But just the in-game playing and getting invested is the best on the market, I think. The development team is great as well, but yeah, what exactly did you want to chat about in Final Fantasy? Is it just like, differences to WoW or?
I mean, we can talk maybe slight differences to WoW, but let's just like I guess talk about it because I'm guessing that a lot of people don't know how it works. I was thinking of maybe discussing the GCD differences between WoW
Yeah.
because just playing before, it felt nice to use an ability on like a buff that was on a separate GCD to my abilities. Fucking crazy. It wasn't even difficult. I pressed this button, and then very quickly after, I pressed the other button, and I was fine. Really
Exactly.
weird.
Actually, Final Fantasy works on a system where your main rotational skills they all share a GCD. It's actually called a recast timer in this, not a GCD, because GCD means global cooldown, and that means everything, and that's kind of the route WoW is taken. But in Final Fantasy, it's called a recast timer, as in the time between that specific category of attacks, which is also quite nice. So they have like different categories of stuff. They have your offensive stuff, your main rotation, which means if you're gonna press Frostbolt, Ice Lance, Flurry, they're all on the same recast in this. But any like self buff or enhancement of your character would be on a separate recast timer, so you can weave it in between. Utility again, like stuns, debuffs that you put on the enemy that purely reduce damage or something, not they don't do damage or have a damage over time effect on them, are also on a separate recast. So there's a lot of like weaving you can do.
Yeah, so do you want to give an example of like maybe say the ninja because you're familiar with that class and the kind of way you weave your abilities? Because unlike WoW, especially since the GCD is affected by haste, and obviously you can do the same thing in Final Fantasy, the recast timer is actually quite long. For example, I'm leveling a character now and I'm only level 12, so I'm actually a massive fucking noob. But it's something like 2.5 seconds between casts.
Yeah, it is straight
just
up
for your main
2.5.
abilities. So it's a long time. So do you want to explain like in a standard rotation late game how that kind of works?
Yeah, so like the 2.5-second GCD, and I guess we'll refer to GCD just for clarity. It feels long at the very start of the game, and I know I had a lot of people that tried out Final Fantasy, and then they're saying, yeah, this feels really, really slow, because when you're level, early levels like your character Joey, it feels kind of bad because you only have like the 3 abilities. Like in any standard MMO, you start off with very few abilities, and they all share the same recast timer, same GCD, because they're all offensive abilities, so that you can actually start doing damage, and the game is introducing you to kind of the the rotational kind of combo system. And so it doesn't represent how that kind of feels late game because of all the different GCD categories. What actually happens is you have your main rotation, which is not a priority system, it's a combo system. So using ability 1 transitions into ability 2 and transitions into ability 3. And using it in that order will cause one thing to happen. For example, like a strong single target attack or finish on an AoE or apply a damage over time effect. So there's a lot of variance in the rotation itself, but then you also have to weave in offensive buffs for certain things. So for example, the ninja would have a hand symbol system like called mudras. So imagine Naruto like super weeb, which is, it's like basically spellcasts, 3 different spellcasts that you do in a different order to then finish off and cast a spell. So what you do is you press your first ability in your combo, for example, that's on the long GCD, and then in 2.5 seconds before you can press the next part of your combo, you have to press 3 different hand symbols and the finisher button to cast that spell, and then hit your next ability in the combo. So it's like you're squeezing loads of button presses into the window between spells, and there's pretty much always something to press between your rotational spells, so that actually the end result of Final Fantasy rotation is much faster than World of Warcraft.
I kind of like that because, I mean, to me it just seems interesting to have this kind of like 3-dimensional play style where you've got this main rotation of abilities, but then you have to weave stuff in between, as opposed to WoW where it's purely a priority system. And obviously you can have priorities in Final Fantasy, but it's just, okay, I've pressed my my bloodthirst. Let's fucking spam raging blow. Okay, now I've got 100 rage. Press rampage. I mean,
Exactly.
and like by all means, Fury Warrior is a fast and fun class, but compared to the kind of stuff I see in like max level Final Fantasy stuff, it seems really cool, and classes are really unique. So I think a good example of that is the class that I want to be playing, because I've done some research, and not into every class, but I'm kind of set on tanking in Final Fantasy, and the Dark Knight looks really fun. And one of the things that really appealed me towards the Dark Knight was the fact that it has like this really crazy and almost like complicated damaging opener, which you can do, and obviously it can vary depending on the needs of the fight. But you have like all these different systems, and they interplay together instead of having that one kind of goal in WoW where you're either building and spending, or like prioritizing dots and just shit like that. So like Fire Mage is a great example. You do your one combust at the start, and then you just go fishing for hot streak procs, and using your rune of power and media here and there, and you're waiting for your next combustion. Whereas in Final Fantasy, I mean, sure, there are going to be classes with stronger bursts, and again, I'm not too familiar with all the classes, but you have these different layers between the classes. Like, for example, with the ninja, where you have these like rotational like combos where maybe you want to get up a dot, or maybe you want to do a self buff, and you have to prioritize that. So it's a much more layered type of gameplay.
Yeah, actually, a very interesting comparison is the Black Mage, because Black Mage is essentially mage, right? Like, it's World of Warcraft mage and Black Mage are similar in the sense that they're both casters. They both don't tend to be very mobile. Now, obviously, mage has blink and Black Mage doesn't have blink, so there's a lot of extra mobility in the World of Warcraft mage over the Final Fantasy Black Mage. But I find it interesting that like World of Warcraft has Rune of Power, and Black Mage has this basically Rune of Power equivalent. They put down a large circle and it increases their damage and haste and so on. But the difference is, and this is I think where Final Fantasy does it better and makes it more engaging, is that while you're in that casting circle, you can pretty much keep up your combust window, essentially, right? It's called Enochian, I think, in Final Fantasy, but basically it does the same thing. It gives you huge damage potential. But if you stay in that circle, it gives you the ability to keep up your damage window much longer. So whereas the cooldown, the buff would last like, I forgot how long, maybe 10, 15 seconds, but it gets then extended by your casts. You can keep that window up constantly so long as you have like mana and you manage your resources. So imagine in WoW, if you're a fire mage and you put down Rune of Power and you use your combust perfectly and you weave in your braces and so on, that it extends combustion. It's kind of that sort of gameplay.
It's kind of interesting.
Like, it's very cool concept. I mean, obviously, I'm using kind of false analogies a little bit just to kind of
Yeah,
give
but
examples, but
it
it
makes sense
feels like
though.
that.
I think like the reason it's cool is because you have a very similar ability, but the way it interacts with your class of Final Fantasy is more meaningful. Was in WoW, you just throw out your Rune of Power when you need to. You know, you throw it during your
And
combust, and then you throw it like once in between your combust, and then you save it with your meteor for your next combust, and then that's your gameplay. It's very much something you can like just do and forget about. It just increases your damage straight up. It doesn't change how you play.
yeah,
Yeah, it's an
the
interesting
only
example.
the only buffs or stat increases in WoW that actually makes your gameplay more interesting would be like haste or crit in some classes. Like versatility, super boring. You like
Mm,
getting more versatility doesn't do anything
that's
for
a
you.
boring
There's nothing
stat.
that happens.
Boring stat.
Um, or mastery, especially on like some classes. Like, okay, fair enough. Sorry, so fair enough on like fire mages. It increases your ignite damage, but you don't play any different if you have high mastery. Well, maybe if you have no mastery versus high mastery, it changes AoE a little bit from flame strike to using your single target, but it doesn't actually change much about how you think about the game.
Right.
Um, I'm not saying that Final Fantasy stats are more interesting, but the general rotation and the way the buffs interact with you do change a lot.
Well, think about Demon Hunter Mastery. Is there a more boring mastery? At least I can't the monk the one Windwalker. Is that it? Am I an idiot? Yeah, Windwalker, right? At least Windwalker
Windwalker.
Mastery is interesting, right?
Yeah, yeah. So Windwalker Mastery, for those who don't know, is if you don't cast the same spell twice in a row, you get a damage bonus, right? Am I thinking of the right one?
Yeah, that's it. You pretty much
So
have to
yeah,
cast
yeah,
a different ability every time to maintain
exactly.
the damage bonus, which is great because it incentivizes you to play the class. Um, I guess in a different way, although obviously there's going to be a more optimal way. But it encourages you
Yeah.
to play your class differently and it rewards you. But you know, if you compare it to something like Demon Hunter, then okay, you do more chaos damage, is it? Okay, that's boring.
Yeah. Or
That's
chaos
boring
damage.
as
And it
fuck.
gives you more movement
And
speed.
movement speed, but okay, sure. You've got two far rushes and a vengeful retreat. Do you need more movement speed? I don't think so.
No, you don't. But also the Windwalker Mastery is very interesting. To me, like on this point of if stats are interesting, right? Because the Windwalker Mastery does not make Mastery the stat more interesting because what it says is you should not hit the same ability twice, right? That's what your Mastery says, and it doesn't matter how much Mastery you have because you always get a damage bonus from not using the same ability twice.
Yeah,
So
that's
even
true.
if you have 100 Mastery or 10,000 Mastery, the strength of the bonus is irrelevant. It doesn't change your playstyle, and I think that's still boring.
Stats are well boring except for haste. I think maybe the one exception. I mean, it's still haste, obviously, but like something where a class does it right would be something like Shadow Priest,
Hmm.
where you've got those, you know, you're dipping in and out of void form, and you have to time it well, and you like, and it's by all means a difficult class, so you get rewarded if you're doing it properly. But other than that, there aren't too many classes I can think of. I mean, Warrior, you've got okay. For Fury, you've got more enraged damage, and then for Arms, you've got more deep wounds damage. So it's all passive shit. I mean, for the Mastery, for the most part, Mastery is just passive damage.
Yeah, same as versatility, really.
It feels bad when a class's best stat is versatility. I hate that. I mean, it makes sense for tanks and stuff, but you know, you've got Havoc, Demon Hunter. And it's just so boring because it doesn't make you feel good. I mean, like for example, I play a lot of Arms Warrior and so much more than my mage, and I've got like quite a few experience now, and it feels fun, man. It went from a class like when I had like 2,000 haste, it felt boring, and I was always rage starved, and it was just why I never really liked the class too much. But now I've got 3.8k haste baseline, and oh my god, it feels nice. And I only have 4 experience. Like I can get like I swear I can get like 40% more haste from all sources, and oh, it just feels great. Um, I think that kind of stuff is nice. It's why the corruption system is kind of cool in a sense. But
Yeah,
the actual like interactivity between stats and classes in WoW is very boring.
yeah.
I don't think Final Fantasy does it really any differently. To be honest,
Well,
I'm not too
so
sure.
so the stats in Final Fantasy are not really more interesting, right? So you've got your base stats, strength, dexterity, stamina, that kind of stuff, and they don't really do anything. You've got crit, you've got basically what is effectively versatility, but only on a damage side, called determination. But the thing that I find interesting in Final Fantasy, and WoW used to have it, is hit rating. So
Is that
hit
so you don't
rating,
miss shots?
so you don't miss, right? Now, obviously, it is a boring stat. You just get X amount of hit rating, and you're done. You don't get lower than that, and you don't get higher than that. But it does mean that you have to think a little bit about gearing choices, and I do find that a little bit more interesting than just not having hit and just being like, okay, listen, you can equip whatever of these boring stats that you want. Because what hit rating basically represents is a minimum investment into something undesirable. Because hit rating doesn't increase your DPS. It doesn't do anything for your DPS. It just means that your DPS is consistent. And yes, it increases your DPS because you're not missing stuff, but you want to not be missing anyway, right? It's not an interesting interaction. So why is hit rating interesting then? Hit rating is interesting because it requires you to invest this much and not any more. And if you then have to make the choices between gear, then you can make sets or gear setups where you hit that minimum in different ways. And then the min-maxing in that regard becomes interesting, in my opinion.
Right. So I actually, like, I get what you're saying, but I kind of disagree in a sense, but for a different reason. I don't like a dumb and annoying element of the game to be something I have to cover up with a stat. I think it's something like nobody likes missing their shots, and it's stupid. So it should
Yeah,
be in the
true.
game baseline. But then, like, the fact that you have to make up for that with putting exactly the right amount of stat is just tedious. And, you have that maybe to a degree with WoW, because, like, some classes, might need, like, a minimum amount of haste or something. But if it's just to the point where you have to do this just so you guarantee landing shots, it just seems tedious.
In essence, you're not wrong, but if you look at it that way for every mechanic, right? If you're saying, okay, listen, this is tedious and seems pointless, so why not just allow me to do it, like allow me to hit every spell? But then that shifts it to, well, I guess it depends how you look at it. Is something a requirement or a bonus? Like, if you miss a shot, is that a penalty or is hitting a shot a bonus, right? So say you get rid of all the penalties. So then you can go to the extreme of this argument and say, well, crit rating is boring because now I don't know if I'm going to kill that thing in 3 shots or 2 shots. Same thing as hit rating, right? You might need to shoot 3 times because you missed the first ones, but you kill it in 2 shots. So okay, get rid of crit because crit is tedious and I just need to gear to get 100% crit. Now obviously no one's going to do that, and it's an absurd argument, but I'm just saying, like, all these things add up to the same kind of idea, where if you remove everything that's a little bit tedious and annoying that you have to cover, stats themselves become irrelevant, and you should just use a character profile, like a character template.
Yeah, I guess
And
that
then
makes sense, to be honest.
Yeah.
I've actually got a question for Final Fantasy because it seems interesting to me. So in WoW, you have, like, really cool offensive GCDs, right? You have cool abilities. You've got, like, combustion, for example, or maybe Zuin, like the tiger with monks, and like recklessness with Fury Warrior. Just you have these abilities which are offensive in nature and change the way you play the game to a degree, and they're fun, right? In Final Fantasy, now I'm not familiar with the classes or abilities at all, but is there shit like that?
There is on some classes, and so wait, let's see if I can find this. I'll send it
Because
to
I
you.
know
Maybe,
my
I don't know.
offensive cooldown right now as Marauder is okay. All your shit has a 100% crit chance for 10 seconds, which I guess is essentially combust. But because of how combust interacts with mage, it becomes much more interesting because it actually changes your playstyle. I think
I'll
it's
send
cool
you
if you
something
can
on
have
Discord.
abilities. I can open on my phone, I guess. I just don't want to open it because it'll fuck up the overlay.
Yeah, I don't know if you can show that on stream or anything.
Okay, I'll open it on
Maybe
my
you
phone.
can't. But basically, what that maybe we'll edit it in for YouTube just to kind of overlay once to show what it is. But basically, this is the Summoner class, which is basically a mobile dot-based DPS class, and in the image it shows like most of the. It's a 2-minute cycle. Over those 2 minutes, about 2/3 of the phases is just filler phase with casts and keeping up dots, and then there's these smaller phases with Firebird trance or Bahamut phase or a Dreadworm trance where like your class pops off. So it's not that you use one button like combustion and suddenly you're godlike and that's your DPS window. It's more like the flow of your class, because there's a lot more interplay between how it works, creates these windows that you just kind of go insane. And then during those windows, it's really important to not make mistakes. And those windows can literally be pressing one button for like 6 seconds, but those one button presses repeatedly are going to hit really crazy hard, and they feel good because everything you've done to surround it has been interesting as well to kind of make sure that that window appears.
Right. Yeah,
So
that's
it's not
interesting.
press and go into combustion, it's build to it and make it work kind of thing.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, but Final Fantasy does seem like a good game. I'm definitely it seems like a bit of a grind to get to the point where I can become that Dark Knight and be a bit cooler.
Yeah.
But until then, it's just a chill leveling experience, so I'll give it a go. It's fine.
Yeah, the biggest defining factor, in my opinion, and why it's a better MMO is that it's not so much based on the grind, and it's not so much based on endgame. You can actually play Final Fantasy completely casually, like just farm for transmog and farm for decorations and farm for your house and your like player housing and other things, and just chill out and do stuff with friends and maybe do a bit of role play or whatever. And it doesn't feel out of place. It doesn't feel like, well, I should be doing something else. And that could just be my bias speaking in WoW, but I don't see that emphasized by the World of Warcraft developers at all. For example, in Final Fantasy, there's a place called the Golden Saucer, which is an entire area dedicated purely to like in-game gambling, like for the
That's
laugh.
sick.
Like it's, you don't use your gold, you use like points and stuff, and you can win transmogs and like furniture and stuff, and it's just really fun. You can just hang out there for a couple of hours and play the lottery, play the slots, play different activities, and it has nothing to do with endgame, but it's really fun.
That's cool. I like that. Yeah, WoW definitely emphasizes a lot of grindy stuff. I mean, you know that for a fact when one of the game developers or whoever was in charge said, oh yeah, we saw that more people were actively doing this, so to us that shows that they're engaged and enjoying the content. It's like, no, we have to fucking grind this shit because you made us. So they have these robotic fucking answers like, oh, X number of people is doing activity B. Activity B is good.
Indeed. And then
It's like, God, oh my God, like, look, everyone who has a cloak is doing the visions. They must really like this. No, they fucking suck, dude. They're boring. I don't want to do it 45 times between 3 characters just to get my cloak rank 15. And this is after the fucking, like update where they made it so it's only 1 run. Before it was way more. Way more. Fucking cancer, dude. Hey, Minas, how's it going? We're talking about FF14 at the moment, on a bit of a tangent. But,
it is so fucking, like, yeah, if you don't want to do visions, man, you have to do visions, right? It's just
exactly.
like, oh.
So I kind of want to... No, you finish your point?
There's this system in Final Fantasy that I just wanted to touch on quickly, because it's very similar to what artifact weapons used to be, and kind of maybe a little bit should have been. A little bit.
Yeah, let's do it.
Now, I really like artifact weapons and how they were presented. They had, like, the talent tree in them, the upgradable slots and the relics and so on. Final Fantasy doesn't have that side of it. But what it is the best weapon for your class, right? Obtained after a really long, sometimes quite difficult quest line. And then over the entire expansion, you work to upgrade it. So it's not that you grind AP and stuff like that, but like every patch introduces new ways to improve your weapon, and you can earn those things usually by endgame content, right? Because there has to be some way to do endgame content, and it makes your weapon stronger. What I love about that is that all the weapons are, obviously they look amazing. Final Fantasy is an amazing looking game, but also that it kind of has this identity to your thing, because one expansion, the most recent one, is like Shadowbringers, so all the weapons are like evil themed and corruption themed and that kind of thing. So you're supposed to be, without spoiling the story, because honestly I can't really spoil it because I haven't played it through it, but it's like there's a world where there's no more evil or something, and then we have to come in there and create evil because our world can't exist properly without having both dark and light. And that's why it's called Shadowbringers. So we're the
Oh,
kind of
okay.
the evil guys, but in a good way, if you know what I mean.
That's cool.
So all the weapons that you get in that one are actually like this kind of shadowy, corruption themed evil stuff, and you upgrade it over time, and it's really, really nice. Like it's when I say that that's how artifact weapons should have been, I don't mean that artifact weapons shouldn't have had the skill trees and upgrades and so on that they did have. That was good, but maybe they should have been a little bit more like customizable and upgradable. This is
Throughout
going to
the
be
expansion.
a little bit of a fucking tangent, but
That's
it
fine.
was so stupid that we get Ashbringer. Like, what the fuck, man?
Nice a
example.
tangent.
Like, it's so dumb. Like, Ashbringer is this really cool, like, lore weapon, and then suddenly you see fucking Billy Bob Paladin #4 running around with it in Dalaran, and you're like, go away. Ugh, it was
That's
the
true.
worst.
Yeah, they did. They're like, hey, why don't we just give everyone this?
It was so bad. And I know that WoW is kind of going around this, oh, you're the hero now, and actually all the other players don't have them, but I still see them,
Yeah,
man.
you
They still
see
carry it
It's
on
an
their back.
MMO. Everyone fucking has it. It doesn't become special anymore.
Yeah.
All right, that's like the whole point.
If the weapons instead were not lore relevant, right? They they were lore relevant, but they weren't
That's powerful.
these unique artifacts that were wielded by like Tyrion or Thrall, then at least you could say, fair enough, that guy has it too, and it's kind of cool. And oh, which part of the quest corruption thingy is he on now? And I don't know. It would be more interesting to me.
Yeah, that's true. Instead, it's just like, yeah, okay. There's this really strong artifact, and
Yeah,
you get
look,
it,
Minas was
and
saying
then
that,
you're done.
Sorry?
It's like you get your artifact, and then you're just done. It's like, okay,
Yeah.
well, you don't have to really grind it throughout the expansion. You finish it kind of soon, which is
Exactly.
fine. But yeah, I don't know. But I really wish, like, maybe this is me complaining because I wasn't playing when the Mage Tower thing was active. But man, I wish we could get those appearances now. Like,
Yep.
oh, I really want them. It sucks to like see people with this content and then you can't have it just because you didn't play the class during that time or you didn't even play the game during that time. It kind of sucks.
I'm kind of okay with exclusive stuff sometimes. So if something's exclusive, it kind of makes it more special. But in some
course.
ways, it's not good. Like maybe they should release recolored versions of it or something.
Yeah, that would be nice. Like, kind of like what they did with Championship, Riven, and League. They brought the skin back, and it was a really popular skin. But then, when they did that, they actually kind of remade the original skin, or at least the border of it. I think some of the VFX as well, so you could distinguish between who had the original skin to maintain that prestige, but then you could still actually play the skin. So, that's like a compromise where everybody's able to enjoy it, but the people that had that prestige of having, of owning the skin, weren't let down. Because obviously it's a kick in the balls. It's like, oh, well, now everyone has this, even though I worked for it. But there are workarounds, obviously.
Yeah, it should never be the case of everyone just gets it, right? Like there should be some effort involved, and it should retain some exclusivity. So I think that Recolor Championship Ribbon skin's a good example. So the main crux is the people that earned it back then, like legitimately, need to feel special, right? But everyone else needs to have an avenue to get something that's similar, and maybe they don't feel special for having it then, but it can't tread upon that special feeling either. So it's like if some randomer sees the new Championship Riven recolor, would just be like, oh, that's a cool skin. But if they saw the real Championship Riven skin, they'd also just be like, oh, that's a cool skin.
Yeah,
but for those that know and understand, they'll be like, oh, damn, you got that?
Yeah, it's like why would you play Guardian Druid if you didn't have that sick fucking Yeti form? Like, who even cares? I really like what Mina said though in my chat. He said feats of strength like the Green Lock quest. I love that shit, man, because Warlock was the first class I ever played, and doing that Green Fire quest actually made me so much better at the game. Because it made me combine all, because I knew my rotation, but then I had to combine all aspects of my kit, just to, beat it. And obviously, maybe for, veteran players, it wasn't too hard. But for me as a new player, it was extremely difficult. It took me a few tries to get it. And then you get rewarded with this thing, which completely changes how your class looks. I mean, honestly, I was thinking of, gearing my, leveling and gearing my Warlock recently, which is still level 90, just because it has the green fire. It's fucking awesome. It's
Yep.
really cool.
That actually leads us on to another thing that I want to talk about for quite a while. We've touched on it before, I think, but class skins. Man, I need fucking class skins in the game in World of Warcraft.
Have we touched on that?
Maybe not on the podcast, but I know I spoke to you about that
Okay.
a little bit.
We'll talk a bit now. What do you want to see?
Oh man, like, so for like huge examples are like Tauren Paladins, right? Like that's completely technically unacceptable, okay? So Tauren Paladins are not really a thing in the lore. Like, yes, they are now because they had to justify it, right? But why not make it like the class is actually called Sunwalker, because that's what they originally were, right? Paladins, sorry, they were warriors that worship the sun god. Was it Anshe or something like that? And they don't actually need to change anything about how the class works. They can still be paladins, like Retribution Paladins and whatever, but just rename what it is and change the visuals a little bit. So that can have huge, wide-ranging effects and make everything lore consistent. What I want to see is stuff like undead priests cannot use holy light because holy light burns them, so there is no undead holy priests in the lore, and yet you can play holy priest because locking people out of that choice would be stupid. So why not make it so that holy, change name to, I don't know, unholy or something, and make it dark themed, so your flash of light or flash heal isn't this bright like boing, but it's like a shadow like that comes down, and same mechanics, works exactly the same way, but looks different and maybe feels different because of the animation.
Yeah, I feel like that would be like a really, maybe even a really complicated thing to understand for new players, and like I can see why Blizzard wouldn't implement something like it, but like a workaround to something like that maybe is the option, like the feats of strength with, you know, like the Green Fire War Quest. If every class had something like that, like a challenge they could do to unlock that kind of stuff, it would be awesome. It would be great.
Or imagine like one of the big ones I saw a picture of it, was Shaman Battle Mage. So shamans in this class skin concept wouldn't be shamans, right? Like it's a shaman base, but it's a battle mage. So enhancement shaman is like going around doing the doomhammery things, right? But this one would instead use like arcane power, and instead of using lava lash, it'd be like spell lash or something. And you know, it's arcane themed, and maybe they're only using one weapon instead of two, and all the like the way the spec works and the behind the scenes math is all the same, so there's no mechanical difference on what you press and thing. It's just different what you see.
Just looks different.
And do you remember Spellblade Illyriel from Nighthold?
Yeah.
Like that theme as a battle mage doesn't exist
yeah.
in WoW.
Because she changes from like fire to other elements, right?
Yeah. And you can incorporate that into the Shaman kit because you're already using like fire for Lava Lash, you're already using nature for like Storm Strike. So why not just have that be like, you know, the same way that Spellblade Illyriel does it, and it looks like that, but mechanically it's just an enhancement shaman.
Yeah, it would be great if you're like, you know, if you do these certain quest lines which are challenging, and then you have the option, do you want to be like elemental shaman or arcane shaman, or like maybe you want to have more of an emphasis on one element, like then you can take those and put it like, and it just replaces it in your spellbook, but it's the exact same thing. So like you said, instead of maybe like using like lava lash, maybe you have like fucking water lash, who knows, but you can like customize your abilities so they play the exact same, but like the interaction is different and it feels unique. That could be cool. I don't see Blizzard doing it because it seems like a lot of work and no reward for them. Maybe if you can put it on the auction house and buy WoW tokens for it, then sure. But
maybe. Mina said in chat that he says you can cause lore inconsistencies. What do you mean specifically, Minas?
That's interesting.
Because I think it fixes a lot of lore inconsistencies. Because, like, yeah, maybe like Blood Elf Paladins being Blood Knights with borrowed power and using blood magic, it doesn't fit the Holy Light, so it doesn't really fit for them to be a Paladin. So if you make them Blood Knights instead, but lock them out of Paladin until you've done that feat of strength if you think it's too confusing.
That seems confusing already, though.
Is it though? I don't think it is.
I don't think it is in your head.
Because it's just like, okay, you pick this, and you could have a thing that says Blood Elf, and then your class, and it's like Paladin, Blood Knight. Like, it's a Blood Knight. It's not actually Paladin, but it plays like a Paladin. Like, it's not like people are not gonna understand that it's the same thing, right?
Yeah, fair enough. We have undead priests in the lore that use holy light and refer to the light. Oh, do we?
Yeah. No, we have one guy, Alonsus Foul, and when he uses the holy light, it says it's painful, and he does it as penitence. Not most undeads don't use the holy light, and most undeads cannot use the holy light.
Oh, okay. Specifically with undead priests, fair enough. I don't really know the lore and too well, to be honest, but yeah, I do want to cover one more kind of game related topic, and then we can talk about science and shit until the end. But
so excited.
We talked about it briefly before, but why do you think people buy boosts? Because we were saying before that it's much more common and popular in games like World of Warcraft as opposed to stuff like Final Fantasy or a Wild Star, which is now a dead game. But why do you think?
So the first thought I had about this was that the game, moment to moment, the gameplay loops engagement being lower leads to more people buying boosts or asking for help doing stuff because they can't be asked to do it. So if the gameplay loop is really engaging, you want to play more, then they'd be kind of like, well, why would I pay to do this? Why would I pay to have someone do this for me? Or why would I want to have someone carry me through this? Because this is fun and engaging. Whereas in something like WoW, where everything is kind of tedious and grindy and samey, and no one wants to do anything bar their fucking weekly 15 and their heroic grade. So if you have to do visions, you just go, fuck it, boost me, because it's not interesting. That's kind of my first opinion on it.
Yeah, I mean, I made you boost me in visions when I was on my fucking mage and stuff. Like, I hate this stuff, and I think that was mostly because I wasn't comfortable with visions and didn't really know what to do in them. But once I learned, obviously, you know, I helped you with that one vision run, which you didn't really need, but it was fine.
But we found out I don't need it after you did it.
Exactly. So, do you think it comes down, like, because what I said before was that it really comes down to the grind in World of Warcraft. You know, you ding a new character to 120, and then, you know, you have to grind Mythic Plus for a while doing these dungeons, and then from there you can do a normal run into a heroic run, and then maybe you've got like 450 eye level, and then you have to wait really, and sure, maybe you can do some visions in the meantime and other shit, but it takes a long time. Whereas if you just ding 120 and then hop into a heroic boost with 3 traders, then you get an almost guaranteed 460 item level if you don't get fucking scammed, which saves a lot of time, and then you could just go and grind that other shit like divisions, and it does save time. Do you think it's because of that, or do you not think it's the main reason? Because we do see people buying boosts every week, even when they have gear.
Yeah, so I think in a broad context for World of Warcraft and the state it's in right now, that could be a main reason. But I ask, is that then due to them not finding the gameplay loop of gearing up and doing low-level things engaging, and they just want to skip right to the end being geared and just doing whatever they find interesting?
That's what I'm like. I don't care about doing a Mythic +3.
Exactly. But maybe if doing Mythic +3 and working your way up was more interesting, you wouldn't consider getting boosted to get that gear, like, skip, essentially.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think maybe it's not necessarily a design flaw, but something they can address. But at the same time, boosting, you know, is completely fine, you know, for gold and WoW. So I guess maybe it's not a problem because people have the option to do what they want. You know, at the end of the day, people are going to want to skip stuff, and that's fine. I know I'm happy to.
Oh yeah, no, you will find people buying boosts in pretty much every game, right? Because some people want to skip certain things, or, you know, just be sick of doing the same shit and just being like, nah, listen, just carry me through this.
I mean, even some people in games like, sorry to cut you off, but even people in some games like Overwatch, they might be a master player, and like then they'll level a Smurf, and they may not necessarily be bothered to grind it all the way to like Diamond or Master Tier just to play with their friends again. And they'll just get a boost. I mean, if you have the money, then that might just be incentive enough to save time. Minas, you disagree with the boosting? Why do you think that? But sorry, Pink, continue with your point that you were going on with before.
No, I wanted to add to this because watched the most recent video from Preach about, I forgot exactly what it was about, but he was talking quickly about how a lot of the people in his guild are a little bit more active. They're gearing up all their, they're maxing out all their alts, getting them to max level, and then like gearing them up together, and The way they usually do it, he was saying, is that they carry each other through Heroic or through Mythic Plus and just kind of, 4 people on their maxed out mains carry the new guy until he's geared, and then you return the favor to each other. So obviously it's good if you have a community that can do that, but you can see that not even like the people who are really into the game and doing content on it all the time are into doing the low level stuff.
That's
Just
a good
kinda-
point. Yeah, I mean, we don't do that as a guild ourselves, though. I mean, if we talk about like our
Yeah.
guild, then we do fuck all outside of raids. I mean, sure, we have a few people that do grind Mythic Plus keys and stuff like that. You know, Yumi, Ben, Rude, Cal, people like that. But like the guild as a whole doesn't really do much outside of raids, which is a bit disappointing. But I guess the reason why Preacher's Guild does it is because, like we're getting towards that point where pre-patch is going to come soon enough, so they're getting their ults ready to, and then they're going to decide what they want to play. And maybe that's a function of how hardcore the guild is, but ours is much more casual, so maybe that's why the activity is a lot lower. What do you think?
I think that's correct, like 100%. So many people seem to be just kind of tired of playing WoW in our guild at the moment. You saw it in our progression. You saw it just like if you log in on a random, day, there isn't very many people online, and it's just kind of like,
Yeah.
I wish the community was more active in doing stuff, but at the same time, you can't expect people to come on if they don't feel like it, right? I don't know, but isn't it kind of like a feedback loop as well, where if there's one person less sticking around, that causes other people to not stick around as much because maybe they like playing with them. So
Yeah, for sure.
it's a self-defeating thing.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I know I wouldn't if you stopped raiding, and honestly, probably if you just stopped raiding, then I would consider just finding another guild or doing. I don't know. It depends. Like I like a lot of people in this guild, so maybe I'd stay. But if say you and Ben left the guild, then I'd probably just find another guild or leave the guild and stop playing.
Yeah.
Because for me, the social aspect is really important. So Mina said money equals token equals gold equals boost. So money is boosting, so you're paying to win. I mean, I agree with that.
I don't fully agree with that, because if you want to turn money into boosts, there's much cheaper ways to do it than over tokens.
Yeah, but a lot of
Way
people
cheaper ways.
are going to do it. Just going to do that anyway. Either because they
Yeah.
don't want to get caught, or because they're too naive, or maybe because they're scared.
Yeah, true enough.
I find that really hypocritical though on Blizzard's end, I'm not going to lie. Like, I mean,
It
obviously
is.
it makes sense because gold sellers undercut the WoW token because it is ridiculously overpriced. But I don't see why people get permabans for selling gold when Blizzard sells gold themselves. I think it would make much more sense, obviously, if the WoW token didn't exist and then they'd ban people for that. But considering they do it, it's kind of hypocritical to a degree because those tickets normally tend to say exploitative abuse of the economy, which doesn't make sense when they're doing the same thing.
It makes sense from a business perspective because obviously
Sure.
Blizzard doesn't want you to step into their territory and like let's say if there was a drug seller or something, right? And you go onto his territory and start selling other drugs as well, he's going to be like stabbing you, tell you to get away. Same thing with Blizzard, right? It's their game, their IP, and if other people make money through it and Blizzard doesn't see any cut from that, I can see why they're against it.
Oh, yeah, for
So I
sure.
can see why they put in the token, because people are going to buy gold with Blizzard or without Blizzard.
Yeah, that's true.
So-
It's a good point. You definitely can't dispute that. But, I don't know. So, let's talk science and shit. If you only want to hear about gaming in this podcast, then we'll see you for next week's episode. Or maybe not even, because next week is number 5 and there might be no gaming. So, but for the rest of this podcast, however long that is, we're going to talk about random shit because we're nerds. So we like science and all that other stuff and maybe a bit of philosophy. So let's see what happens, man. But Pink and I, even before the podcast and the channel, everything, we'll have these nights where we stay up for hours talking about random shit and we just teach each other stuff and it's good fun. So let's fucking talk science and stuff.
Dude, it's amazing fun. Like, this is one of my favorite things, just to be able to chat shit and be like, listen, this stuff I don't understand. Let's fucking try to understand it. Like, it's so cool.
This is why we wanted to start doing podcasts together. Because we
I
have
know.
these long rants about science. And, like, we're by no means experts. I mean, I study I'm doing my master's degree in psychology, and I'll be accredited in roughly 2 years. And I'm by no means an expert, but when it comes to science, I'm just an enthusiast. I read a lot of books. I've got a ton of books behind me. Slacking a bit now, but it's always been an interest of mine. So it's really fun to talk about. I love reading. Like, I've read all of Stephen Hawking's books, most of Neil deGrasse Tyson's book. I'm reading now, what is it called? The Emperor's New Mind by Roger Penrose. Fantastic book so far, but I'm kind of just starting it. I love that shit.
Penrose is one of my idols, dude. The guy is insane.
My dad went to this conference, I think like science conference in Geneva, and Roger Penrose was presenting there, and like my dad got his signature and everything, and I had like a talk with him. My dad's really interested in this stuff too.
I'm actually jealous, dude. Roger Penrose is so cool.
He's a smart man. But yeah, big,
one of the best minds of the century, man.
For sure. I mean, he was Stephen Hawking's mentor, right?
Exactly. It's like, wow.
Stephen Hawking. I mean, like honestly, when I finished reading the last book I did by Stephen Hawking, and this was like the prologue or ending was written after he died, and I read that, I had a little tear, man. I cried a bit. He was a cool guy, and and he's so humorous in his books as well. He makes all these jokes and is so modest. It's crazy. You know, like I remember reading in one of his books, he said something like, he would be happy if he could make even a slight contribution to the world of science. Like, he made so many crazy contributions. I mean, Hawking radiation is enough of one, and then so much other stuff I don't even understand.
Showing us the way that like a lot of these stellar objects can be understood with modern physics theories and models. It's just like, man, how can you even start something like that? Never mind actually like finishing the theories and pushing it out to publication. Like,
it's crazy. I mean, the way he actually found out, or not found out, but the way he actually kind of discovered or thought about Hawking radiation was kind of a product of his disability, because it took him a long time to, you know, get ready for bed at night because he could barely move, so he had to take off his clothes and all that. And he says in the book, one night as he was getting into bed, it just came to him. So for those of you who don't know, black holes, nice, yeah, black holes are cool. So yeah, for those of you who don't necessarily know, and obviously if you read a book by Stephen Hawking or just watch a YouTube video on like made by an expert, then they'll probably explain it better. But the point of this podcast is that we're not experts, right? But we still like going into this stuff. But yeah,
it's
Hawking,
about showing our passion.
Exactly. So Hawking radiate. Okay, so I guess before saying what Hawking radiation is, it's maybe better to discuss the problem that existed and why Hawking radiation was really monumental when Stephen Hawking discovered it. And I want to say it was in 1974. But essentially, there's this problem. And so there are these laws of the universe, right? And one law is that information cannot be lost. But then this law suddenly becomes broken when we start looking at things like black holes, because we see, you know, stars and light suddenly being sucked into these black holes through the event horizon, and we don't know where the information goes. So to us, and what we perceive it to be, the information is essentially lost. Now, what Stephen Hawking proposed through the theory of quantum mechanics is, yeah, exactly, it's a paradox, right? So what Stephen Hawking proposed is this idea that the information actually isn't lost, but instead it's radiated its energy through the black holes, through the black hole. And the way this works is through particles and antiparticles. So in quantum mechanics, you have this idea that every particle has an opposite pair, which would be an antiparticle. And they don't necessarily need to be close to each other, but they can be entangled. And so you can have one particle on one side of the world, and then another on the other side of the world, and they interact, right? So if one moves, then the other moves in the opposite way. This is obviously a very basic way of explaining it, but it gets the message across. And so what Stephen Hawking kind of hypothesized was that when something gets into a black hole, there may be moments where only one particle or antiparticle is getting sucked in, because if this is the event horizon, then there may be a particle here and an antiparticle here. And so the particle here may be getting sucked in, but the particle may escape. And so this particle escaping, or antiparticle escaping rather, would be seen as radiation if we observed it. And sure enough, when we did experiments, then we can actually see radiation coming out. And, you know, we've kind of proved this to an extent, although that's a bad word to use in science, but we've shown through experiments that black holes, at least through hypotheses, etc., become smaller as they emit more of this Hawking radiation.
I'd like to correct a little bit here, just because it is quite important. So we have shown, as far as I understand it, that there's evidence for Hawking radiation, and he's kind of been like, obviously it's monumental, but we've never actually seen enough information to see that black holes actually shrink, right?
Yeah, because it's a hypothesis, exactly.
Exactly. We extrapolate that
We
they
can presume
will,
it.
but we're not sure of that yet.
And then I'm pretty sure that smaller according to hypotheses again, smaller black holes are estimated to shrink actually more quickly than larger black holes.
Yeah. So the
I don't know
reason
why that
is
is though. I
because of
forgot.
gravity.
So can
So
you go
the
into detail?
Detail as far as I understand it. Again, not an expert. I could be wrong, and please do correct me if I am wrong. But as far as I understand it, right, large black holes. Gravity is much more spread out than small black holes because of the size. Gravity falling off based on an inverse square law rather than, like a linear thing. So smaller black holes will have a much stronger gravity gradient than a large one. So if you go near a small black hole, the pull is much stronger closer to it than it is further away from it. Whereas you could theoretically stand on the event horizon of the largest black holes and not get completely obliterated. Well, close to the event horizon anyway. Whereas, if you fall through it, you obviously get spaghettified. So what happens then is the larger black holes have much less of these high energy particle pairs popping in and out because of the relatively weaker interaction of gravity there. And so they start to essentially evaporate slower, whereas the smaller ones, because of the high energy gradient and potential energy available, will spawn more of these particle pairs, and the particle pairs will have much more of a tendency to be sucked back in or escape, right? And that's why the Hawking radiation is much more strong, much more intense in smaller black holes.
It's the same reason why smaller stars die faster than larger stars, because the gravity inside the smaller stars is actually stronger, I believe. So the stars get to a point where they actually can't, where they actually expend more fuel as opposed to larger stars.
Yeah, it depends again because red dwarfs are technically smaller than M-type stars, and
if you're
M-type
not looking
stars
at
last
dwarfs
much
and stuff.
shorter than red dwarfs. But like, there is smaller stars that are.
For looking at stars like the sun,
hotter.
for example. But obviously,
Yeah.
if we're looking at white dwarfs and red dwarfs, then they last for a long fucking time.
Yeah.
And we'll be long dead before then. Before we see.
There's a very interesting video I watched from Isaac Arthur. I think I linked that to you, Joey, before.
Yeah, I've watched a lot of his videos.
Where he uploaded igniting Jupiter into a second sun and what needs to happen for that. And there's a couple of ways you can do it. It's really, really fun. Like, just conceptually that this is possible with known physics. Either we increase its gravity by putting neutron matter into its center, or igniting fusion via heating it from outside, like using lasers from the sun to heat up the atmosphere until fusion starts, and just like crazy stuff like that. I mean,
some of the shit we have even planned to do is ridiculous. I can't remember this plan too well because I did read the book over a year ago now, but it was in the book by Stephen Hawking. I can't remember which one. I read a lot of them in like a week. But it was this like plan started by Stephen Hawking, and it was pretty much a way for us to get to the closest star in the closest galaxy, right? So I think that's Centaurus A. Is that what it's called?
Alpha Centauri, yeah.
Alpha Centauri A. So you're right, Alpha Centauri. Slipped my mind a bit. But pretty much the plan to do that, and I want to say it's either gone through or it's going through, but it's fucking ridiculous. Pink, if you could do a quick Google search on how far Alpha Centauri is, at least in light years. But
Alpha Centauri is 4.3 light years away.
4.3 light years away. So pretty much, if you were traveling at the speed of light, then it would take you 4.3 years to get there. It's a long fucking way away. It's many kilometers, more zeros than I could imagine. Anyway, this plan that Stephen Hawking and a few other people had come up with was to get a very small rocket almost with, camera properties inside of it so it could take pictures. And what they would do is they would have like lasers all around the world, really strong lasers, and then they would shoot.
Starshot.
Yeah, and then they would shoot the rocket up, then unite all the lasers and pinpoint it onto the back of the rocket, And then the idea is for the rocket to ride on the laser at like very, very close to the speed of light, right to Alpha Centauri. And it was estimated to take something like, I want to say 8 months or something. That's a complete guess, but a ridiculously short amount of time. Wait, it wouldn't be 8. It wouldn't be 8 months. 8 years or something. I can't remember.
Yeah, 8 years. There's no way you can reach it.
I was going to say it's not possible 8 months because it's 4.3 light years away.
Yeah, at a minimum, it's going to be 4.3 years.
Yeah, exactly. But oh no, wait, it might have been. Sorry, it might have been 5. Wait, I want to say 10 years to get there and 8 years to come back or something like that. But still a ridiculously short amount of time considering how far away it is.
Well, if I remember Project Starshot correctly, it was
Yeah, you
actually
can
that they're
correct me.
not coming back. They're going to transmit the information back.
Sorry, you're right. It would have taken something like 10 years to get there, and then a slightly shorter amount of time to send the information back. You're correct.
Yeah, that's what I thought it was. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you're right. But that is crazy. Like when I was reading that, I had to fucking reread it because I was like, "This is possible with today's technology? That's crazy."
Dude.
I mean, not everyone has like a very strong interest in science and all that, which is fair enough. But this, like, unless you read up on it, the stuff we can actually do in today's world is ridiculous. I mean, we're making astounding technological advancements every day, and it's become so normal at this point that, like, we don't even hear about it.
Yeah, can I just shout out SpaceX and the recent Dragon launch? Like, that shit is
That was
like,
cool. I watched that on stream, actually.
inspiring that we can achieve that already. But it doesn't come anywhere close to what we're capable of, and that's what's a little bit disappointing, I guess.
Yeah, our knowledge base seems to be light years ahead of what we can actually construct and achieve. Like, we have these ideas, but we can't do it. I mean, like, for example, if we wanted to actually not replicate the Big Bang. Okay, so you can probably explain this better than me, Pink. But with our current Large Hadron Collider, where we, collide particles, we have that big fucking massive one under Switzerland, right? And it goes for a long way. Very long way. It's very big. It would take you... Sorry? Yeah, CERN. It would take you a very long way to do a marathon in there. It's very large. But
Yes.
The reason it's that big is because there's a specific amount of energy you need to collide two particles in order to extract enough information from it. For example, to like how we found the Higgs boson, which appears for a very short amount of time, something 0.01 milliseconds within that initial explosion. But to get to the next like level or echelon of energy needed to discover kind of different theories about the real nature of quantum mechanics and particles and all that, you need a much higher level of energy. And I think, from my memory, the estimated size of that is something like 8 times the size of our solar system. We would need a large hadron collider, something like 8 times the size of our solar system, to get to that next level of energy. And sure, like, there are maybe technological advancements and things you could do to reduce that, like, the amount of space you need. But with our current level of technology, it's something around that big. It might just be the size of our solar system, but because honestly, the number is a bit fuzzy in my head. But it's still much bigger.
For certain things, yeah, but like the theories relying on that high energies are kind of fuzzy anyway.
Yeah.
But there is actually a really interesting thought as well. Have you heard of the superconducting super collider?
It sounds familiar, but you're gonna have to refresh my memory.
So basically, it's originally started in 1971, I believe. I think so. Anyway, it was the first large-scale particle accelerator planned to be built after the first few particle accelerators were built, like the original tests and things were in it. This one was supposed to be massive and cost like billions and billions of dollars. It was going to be built in Texas, I believe, if I'm not wrong.
Okay.
And it actually got cancelled, and CERN was built instead under international management. But this particle accelerator would have been at least twice as powerful as CERN and twice as big.
Oh wow.
It's too bad that they didn't finish it, because it was really it basically would have found the Higgs boson much faster than CERN did.
Why didn't they finish it?
It ran out of funding. They spent like $3 billion or $2 billion on it, and then they were just kind of like, okay, nah, this isn't really going anywhere, and there's a lot of complex politics involved into
building
why.
Oh my god, there's gonna be a black hole and we're gonna die. I remember that. I was in school. Thought I was gonna fucking die that day.
when they turned on CERN, right? It's like, oh no, a black hole. We're all gonna die.
And then I remember listening to, I think, Neil deGrasse Tyson or someone talking about that. Or maybe it was like the Sci Show or something. But they were saying that if a black hole like would have formed, okay, one, we didn't have the energy for that. But if a black hole would have formed from that, it would have been ridiculously tiny and would have died instantly.
Yeah, so if Hawking radiation is the correct interpretation of the evidence we see, then the small, tiny, microscopic, black hole that forms in a particle accelerator can only potentially release as much energy as we put in, right? So yeah, the energy release may be close to instantaneous, but like we see that anyway in there. So like, okay, right? It's not going to do anything.
It's very hard to convince people to invest on something like a collider. Yeah, but, and no offense to people watching this video, but I'm kind of narcissistic in some way. Not narcissistic, that's the wrong word. I'm kind of cynical in some ways. And that's just that a lot of people don't know anything about science at all. They don't care. And honestly, they're fucking stupid. Dislike the video if you want, because I said that, but it's how I feel. A lot of people are just dumb and they don't care about that stuff, but it seems really important to me. I mean, if we as a human race aren't interested and motivated to learn about the origins of the universe and like where we come from and what it really is, then what's the fucking point in continuing society?
Exactly.
Why? So we can
science.
Exactly. Yeah, you continue.
Science for science's sake is the one most profitable and beneficial thing for humanity that we can do. Not funding stuff like particle accelerators just because we want to have a look at the structure of the universe is a crime against humanity, in my opinion. And I know there's a lot of people that don't care. I think everyone should care. And if you don't care, then you're doing the humanity a disservice. Every single scientific advancement that has come from pure curiosity to understand how something works has led to advancements in almost every other field and improved our way of life.
I completely agree. I mean, like, I understand that some people just don't care about science and there's no benefit to them, but we as humanity can't cater to the individual selfishness of people, and we have to look at the big picture and, you know, where we come from and what the universe is really about, and those things are important. I don't give a fuck if you don't care about it because you want to smoke heroin and get high all day. Doesn't fucking bother me if you do that. But don't like stop us as a society and as like humanity itself elevating our knowledge in science, because that to me is not only the most interesting facet of being alive, but it seems like the most important thing, because it helps everyone understand more about not only humanity and Earth, but just everything.
Yeah,
it's so
like,
interesting.
It's okay not to care on a personal level, right? It's okay, like, okay, I'm not interested in this, so I won't pursue that. Like, that's fine, because no one can be interested in everything. But what's not fine is to try and hold back the people who are interested in this kind of stuff. And our budgets are so inflated in certain areas, like military and government spending, like politics and all this kind of shit. And they're so underrepresented in science.
I think we get something like 0.1% of funding in America to NASA. Something like that. It's really low.
It's so sad, dude. It's so sad.
Swap it, man. I think the US has enough military by now. I'm gonna be honest with you. We've probably got enough nukes to blow up the world. Nylon and penicillin were not the primary goals of their respective experiments.
Exactly. Everything is going to lead to something, right? The MRI machine, which is used heavily in medicine, as you would know, Minas.
I know as well. We have to use it in psychology.
Was theoretical physics, right? Like, they came up with this thing like magnetic resonance and what can that do, and then this med student goes, wait, hold on, and then design the MRI. Like, it's crazy shit like that.
It's so beyond useful for psychological experiments as well, because we can test thought processes and you know which parts of the brain activate, and that has led to ridiculously important discoveries in psychology and you know all other aspects of science.
Yeah, dude, I want a brain scan, not gonna lie. I want to know what goes on in my head.
Probably not much, man.
That's true.
It's I don't know, like I don't even know if we're gonna cop some hate for calling out people that don't care about it, because I know it's fine if you don't care about it, but I think you shouldn't actively dislike or like not encourage more money to be funded into this kind of stuff, because it is important. I don't understand why you wouldn't care about it. I don't understand how you couldn't find it interesting. I mean, the fact that, sure, we're on Earth and we're comfy, and yeah, there are volcanoes and tornadoes and stuff, but the fact that there are stars fucking eating each other and comets bouncing into them and black holes sucking them up, and like the universe is so big you couldn't even possibly comprehend it inside your tiny little fucking skull, that's crazy. It's like, what is it? There are as many stars as there are grains of sand on the Earth, something like that. That's fucked. Yeah. And that's an estimate, actually, of course.
Dude, there's far more stars than grains of sand on the Earth. Are you kidding me? There's more stars than grains of sand on the Earth.
In the observable universe?
In the observable universe.
Yeah, in the observable universe. That's what I meant to say.
And even that is potentially a tiny fragment of the whole. Like, we don't know if the actual universe is infinite or not, and there's no way to tell. But the observable universe alone has more stars.
And isn't the crazy thing that we will most likely never know, because like we will never see the universe is supposedly expanding, so we will never see the light from those distant parts of the universe because the gravity is going to be expanding more quickly than the light is getting to us. And so eventually with time, we're actually going to see less and less of the universe because of the rate at which it's expanding.
That's true, but it depends on a few things. So any local point in space will see less and less of the outskirts, right? So the observable universe will effectively shrink. Because the boundary of the observation possibilities gets closer and closer to you as things further away accelerate faster and faster. However, if faster than light, which is another topic I really want to touch on because this is fucking fascinating, all the different theories of how faster than light is possible.
We should say some stuff for next week, though, to be honest.
Yeah, it was definitely... But dude, I could talk about this for 7 hours. I don't care.
We will.
But you know, it's like, if faster than light is possible, then that horizon suddenly shifts and the whole universe becomes possible, right?
Yeah.
And
of course the Earth is flat. We're not stupid.
Duh. Earth is flat, my god.
If the Earth is curved, why could you walk from here to Australia? Of course it's flat. You would fall off.
The craziest part, right? And I think I've spoken to Minas about this, but if the universe is actually infinite, then maybe there is this is so hard for me to put into words, actually.
It's called verbal
because it's just this feeling I have.
It's called verbal overshadowing. So basically, it's a psychological phenomenon. You're welcome.
Oh, really? Is it? Damn, dude, you just got me learnt. Say it again. What's it called?
Verbal overshadowing.
Verbal overshadowing. Okay.
It's like if you have to say why something tastes better, you know it's true in your mind, but you can't explain it.
Yeah, it's this feeling, right? I'm like, okay, this is insane. So if the universe is infinite, okay, so I'm trying to not verbally overshadow here. So if the universe is infinite, but the potential arrangements of all matter and quantum positions are finite, which we know they should be, then that means that the universe at some point becomes repeated, which means no matter what you believe in, as long as the universe is infinite, there's infinite versions of you. And the multiverse theory / many worlds interpretation is true within our bubble of the universe, but they technically can never interact due to the cosmic speed limit.
Wait, can you explain that again like I'm stupid? I didn't catch all of that.
Sorry, I really tried to...
No, try again. That was good, but... I just need it. It's like when you read something complicated in a book and you have to reread it. Just say it again.
Yeah, okay, so... the way matter is the building blocks of the macro universe, what we can see, and the quantum interactions are also probabilistically the building blocks of matter and how they interact, right?
Yeah.
And the way that they can interact with each other and what they can build, there is only a finite amount of things, right? There is X amount of quantum interactions. Now, obviously, that number is crazy high, but there's only X amount of quantum interactions that can possibly happen. And there's only X amount of ways that matter can be stuck together to cause certain things.
Yeah.
So the way each person is a combination of matter and how they're put together and so on. So that means if the universe is infinite, truly infinite, with no end,
I get it, yeah.
then that means eventually you'll come across a bit of matter that's put together in the same way as something else, because you've exhausted all possibilities at that point. And that leads you then to think, will you eventually find another place where all matter is put together in all the same way as something you're used to? So could you, in a sense, find another Earth that's exactly the same as ours. If
But
the universe is
there'll be
infinite.
like one small difference.
Or maybe not even. Maybe not even a small difference. Maybe literally the same.
Oh. But like,
And
I guess if the universe is infinite, then it is technically almost likely for that to be the case. But at the same time, the number is so infinitely small that it would be impossible to find.
yeah, you'll never come across it. But think of it this way, right? If that's true, then that means the universe is not infinite, right? Like I'm just thinking, right? So if this is true, the universe is not infinite, because if you come across the same Earth that you left, effectively it's the same. So you existing on that Earth got onto a spaceship, traveled away to find another Earth, then you return there, but this is the new place. You'd never know the difference. No one would ever know the difference. But this new you went to a different Earth and did the same thing because all the matter is arranged in the same way. So what you're effectively left with is a looped universe, but it's actually an infinite plane. You see what I mean?
I see what you mean, but it's still infinite then. But it's just like the way that
It's
yeah.
Yeah, it's an infinite plane, and the way we observe it would be a looped universe because we could never prove it isn't.
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah,
And
that's a big thought experiment.
dude, that gives me like existential dread, not gonna lie.
I don't think we'll have to worry about it in our lifetime, unfortunately.
Hopefully. I wish we did though. Anyway.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of cool topics to talk about. I'm kind of I mean, I could go on for hours about this, but I'm kind of happy to just leave it here, and then we could talk about all that stuff in the next podcast, because the next podcast will be our fifth episode, and for us, we're planning to just not talk about gaming every fifth episode, and just talk about dumb and crazy shit like this, which is fun.
But I want to reserve one thing for when Minas is on, and that's what he
Of
just
course.
said, the simulation, because I know Minas had some strong opinions on that, and I want to touch on that when he's our guest on the 19th.
I think it seems very possible. You can't disprove it though, so it's a bit Freudian in that sense.
Actually, you can, but we'll talk about it on the day.
Can you? Tell me afterwards.
I've looked into a lot of the simulation hypothesis, and there's ways to prove it, and there's ways to disprove it. It's really interesting.
If there's ways to disprove them, that's great, because theories that are unfalsifiable the crux
Are irrelevant, yeah.
The fucking it's pseudoscience at that point, and I've learned that because I do psychology and Freud existed. So well, that's just how it is. But yeah, it's been a good episode. No guests this week, but we're really good at talking shit. So you're welcome, guys.
We hope you enjoyed.
Yeah, we do hope you enjoyed, and just for everyone on the YouTube, I really do encourage you guys to come check out the stream. We normally do the podcast every Friday evening, and my Twitch stream from around 9:30 onwards is normally good. And then after that, I'll normally do some Mythic Plus and other games. So definitely come around, say hi if you want to. You love pseudoscience? All right, calm down. But yeah, we really hope you guys enjoyed the episode. It's been fun. We had a good time. Next week we're gonna have a guest on, but we don't know who the fuck it is yet because But we're looking forward to it, and definitely looking forward to it in 2 weeks' time with Minas. But thank you guys very much for watching. We very much appreciate it. If you liked the podcast or have anything to say, then leave it in the comments, and definitely drop a like and subscribe. It helps us out a lot. We appreciate it.
Please do.
But anyway, for the tradition of my stream and the podcast to end, we're gonna kiss now. It's gonna be nice. Don't pucker up. There we go. Thank you guys. Have a good one. We'll see you next week. Peace.